I sense a soul in search of answers. Hello and welcome to episode 263 of The Crate and Crowbar. It is the 21st of November. My name is Chris Thurston and tonight I'm joined by Alex Wiltshire.
Hello.
And Tom Francis.
Hello.
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 Hi.
Hi.
Again, hello.
Hello. Hi. Hello. Hello. Hi. The sound check continues deep into the podcast
And
itself.
resonant within.
Not a load of news this week from us because,
Who cares about news?
who cares about the news? Well, the news this week is all just sort of Fallout stuff, right? None of us have played it.
Fallout of the Fallout of other games.
So, yeah, we should rock it on to what we've been playing, because I think we've all been playing some pretty new stuff. Well, I've been playing something I've been playing for ages, but it's new this week. So, where should we start? Alex,
Yeah?
do you want to tell me about the Omnissiah?
I do. I've been playing Warhammer 40k Mechanicus, which, I don't even know why I decided I wanted to play that. I kind of saw it come up in the Rock Paper Shotgun post. I was not aware of it before then. I don't really know why it piqued my interest, but I got it and I played it, and it's a very, very neat little turn-based strategy. A very contained, economical, fun, snappy style turn-based strategy game.
So when you say turn-based, do you mean in the XCOM kind of context, or
Kind of. Well, not even like that really. So it's set in amongst the Adepticus Mechanicus faction of Warhammer 40k, and you up against the Necron. So it's basically
just
cyborgs,
just one big Necron
versus skeletal robots. So it's all mechanicals all round really. And the strategy is really neat. Like, I was very surprised that it's a very simple system. So you have a small number of units on the board. When it's their unit's turn to have a go, each of the units comes up in order, unit order, not in side order. So you get to play in turn with your units. Does that make sense? I think I did with the sense. Don't analyze the words. Just go with what you sensed from what I was trying to say.
I think the turns were nice. That's what I was
The turns
getting.
were nice, yeah. And you have a movement and you can make an action, generally. But it has a really neat little system called cognition in it. So the Adepticus Mechanicus are all about knowledge. They're a faction that kind of tries to discover new technologies and absorbs them and uses them. So the game uses that theme as them absorbing information and then being able to use it to make extra moves. So you start the game with, I think, 4 or 5 potential cognition points, and you pick up cognition points for various things. You can get them for having one of your servitor units hit by the enemy, which is really weird.
As in, it gets hit.
Yep. If the enemy hits one of your servitors, which are kind of like a trash mob of yours, they're cannon fodder, they're very weak, they have a melee hit. If they get hit, they generate a point because through analyzing the hits that they received,
Learned a lot.
they gain information, and then they go, yes, in that case I can fire my gun in a way that I couldn't before. And these points are kind of consistent across, like for you the player, like you can spend them in the way you like across your different units.
Right.
Other ways you can earn them. There's a skill that that you can let them learn, which allows them to earn a point at the start of their match, as part of their turn. And there are also obelisks in the level where when you stand next to it, they'll put out their hand, look at the obelisks sort of hieroglyphs and get inspired to shoot their rifle. The weapons have different...
It happens in 2001, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. The weapons cost different amounts, so there's a sort of a melee kind of axe thing, staff axe thing, which costs 1 cognition to fire, but one of the other starting weapons is a pistol that costs nothing to fire. But you can only fire it once in a turn. You could only fire all weapons at once in a turn. And you have various other items. You can, over the course, like you're sending these units across the campaign over and over into levels, and you level them up and you can give them equipment. And so they kind of reflect, they slowly get more and more complex, and you can fit them out with better and better stuff. But I love the cognition sort of system because it makes fights really dynamic. The first match I played was really, I was going in with kind of quite sort of lumpy old style, like almost Advanced Wars style kind of mindset really. I was expecting to kind of make a turn, make a move and then attack. That's not the way to think about it, because you always have cognition points and your movement is really slick. So you can move to a point, you can fire. If you've got movement points left, you can move again. So you can move out into danger and then back into cover. I should say that cover isn't a big thing in this game. There are some elements of kind of environment which do cover you, but there isn't a cover mechanic at all. Like some things will occlude you. That's about it. And the enemy hit you fucking hard and your characters are pretty squishy. So you're using servitors to kind of distract and get in the way. There's a mechanic where it's got an opportunity thing where if an enemy unit moves into melee range of one of yours, you get a free hit on them.
Right.
There's no chance in terms of whether you'll hit or not, but there is chance in terms of how much damage you'll do. And there's loads of kind of layers of kind of energy armor and stuff like that. But it means that the battles are really, really dynamic, like that you can feel on the edge of kind of failing, and you feel really smart when you figure out the little puzzle that kind of gets you out of it. But for me, we've had this conversation before, Tom, where like I kind of relished the more fuzzy sort of situations like that. I don't know. I really couldn't say at this point. I probably played it for about 2 or 3 hours. I couldn't say how rigorous it is as a strategy, like as in like how much thought you can put into it and how finely balanced it is. I couldn't tell you, but I love the fuzziness of kind of working like skin of teeth kind of,
Yeah. It's good to hear that it has that kind of dynamic feel to it, because I've always assumed that's the reason, or the reason the XCOM doesn't do certain hits with variable damage is that they feel like it's too predictable. It's kind of too, guaranteed. If you will always do at least 1 damage if you're at this range or whatever. And that gives fights a kind of like preordained feel, like, I was always gonna win this turn because of this. Whereas with the percentage chance, it's all kind of up in the air and anything could happen. And, my guess is that they feel that leads to like bigger highs and lows. And I would have thought that one disadvantage of getting rid of that would be, that it was too predictable, that you always knew who was going to win. But it's good that it doesn't feel like that. Yeah,
I mean, the enemies, like, it does there's a lot of kind of enemies coming into play. Like you have maybe 2 Necrons on the board, and then it's like the round ends, and then another one will turn up.
All right.
So that, you're always on your toes and you're always ready for something. There are points at which you can probably assume they're going to come from, but they'll be around the kind of the play area, so you can't really cover them or make any guarantees as where they're coming. There's also like a time-based system where there's a time ticker up in the left corner, and as that sort of that gauge fills up, more stuff comes in. So more Necron appear, or and various other things. So this the tactical side fits into a campaign where effectively you're up safely in a spaceship. You're all tech priests up in a spaceship. Magi, that's what you are. You're magi up in a spaceship, of various types. There's one, the writing is good as well. There's one who kind of speaks in programming language because he's removed almost all of his humanity. There's the leader of them who absolutely hates anything Xenos and wants to purify everything. And he's kind of sequestered away his emotions into a little thing, and he sort of says, my emotional senses are telling me that I'm upset that all of your characters dies. And he's kind of stern and gets out grumpy when you kind of when you study Necron technology, too much.
That is heresy.
And
so.
there's that's all fits into the story. Like there is a great schism within the Adeptus Mechanicus between, do they go for unfettered kind of, technological, research from all Xenos, or do they actually hate the Xenos for being impure and stuff? So it's quite a nice little thing. But anyway, they're on this ship, and your view of the levels is actually like being generated for you. And you've got a few kind of tech priests, lower kinds, that are actually on the field view down there. But they're exploring tombs, and you're initially you're moving them between rooms, on a kind of like a zoomed out sort of map. And then every time you go into a room, there'll be an event. And this is like the one thing I don't really like about it, which is that, as you go into rooms, you always know where the fights are going to be, because they'll have little red kind of, little, characters sort of sitting them like hologram style figures standing in them, and then the objects, the where you actually end up trying to head to, will have them in as well. The rest of them will bring up a little text box that says, "You found some ancient hieroglyphs, but the Necron are coming. Do you study them carefully? Do you destroy them all, or do you quickly take a picture of them?" And you choose one of them. And it's kind of like some of them will give you a bonus kind of currency thing you can use to level up with, or it might damage one of your characters or all of your characters, or it might turn up the time ticker that also runs when you're in a tactical, fighting combat. So when you're often inheriting decisions you came with before, in terms of how hard the combat is, because you spent more time exploring beforehand. I don't like the multiple choice things, because I don't fucking know which one's the best one.
How do you feel about those? Because I feel like FTL has that and Slay the Spire has that as well. How do you feel about how they worked in those games?
I think I didn't mind them in them, because, Slay the Spire only had 2 choices usually? Or was it 3?
It varies a lot. The Slay the Spire, I feel like, is the best example of those, because they're always, I don't know, they're always very specific. So there's one like you just fall down a hole, and there are 3 different ways you can save yourself, and it picks a card from your deck that's a power and says you can use that, and picks a card from your deck and says that's an attack, and one that's a skill. And by using that to save yourself, you take it out of your deck. And I think it intentionally picks your best one, like your rarest card of that kind. So it's usually 3 things you want, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, actually, I kind of wanted to get rid of that anyway. And so there's lots of stuff like that where it kind of, how good or bad this is depends on what you're going for with your deck, and everything feeds into everything else. Right. So it's always kind of different every time.
So that's good, because it's playing on it's playing on stuff that you're planning around what you want, and what you're risking, what you might want to keep. And this is just all hidden. It's 3 choices. And behind one of them will be a good thing. Or perhaps all 3 are pretty bad, but there's one particularly bad, And I couldn't say maybe there is more reason to it than I've kind of divined so far. Maybe, if your mission is from one of the characters that likes to study the roboty guy that kind of likes to study the Xenos technology, then maybe I'm meant to choose the choices that involve kind of spending a bit more time. But it's a bit kind of like, and you can sometimes tell, that if it's sticking behind to spend more time studying them, maybe that will tick the time will go up further. But, from the tactical side is quite exacting. I don't, as I said before, I don't know how exacting it is really, but it's fun, but and demanding. This is like a bit arbitrary, Then one more shout out actually for the music, which is fucking great. It's like very mechanical. It's like Thomas Tallis kind of style, kind of, canticles of, medieval canticles, monks singing over industrial kind of electronica, and it's extremely good.
Nice.
But, it's
what is the name of the game in?
Warhammer 40k Mechanicus.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was like a 4X game recently in the Warhammer universe,
was,
right?
Gladius.
Right.
Yeah.
Also involved Necrons, but.
Yeah. That's what I've been picturing in my head the whole time you've been talking, and it's only just occurred to me this might be 2 different games.
Yeah, very different games.
I think this is why I'm wondering why I was so interested in this, because it is very hard to tell. Even the action games, they all do.
I actually did for a while have this one mixed up with Inquisitor, because that's a lot closer, because Inquisitor is the Diablo-y one. Yeah. But obviously Diablo and turn-based strategy, squad strategy are approximately the same camera angle and level of detail, right? So
yeah,
I did have them. Those are the 2 40K ones of those. There's also
there's a recent Space Hulk one, wasn't there?
There was a recent Space Hulk, which is also in the same territory. Yeah, it's interesting. Like you kind of spoil for choice with 40K turn-based strategy.
I know they're getting like the new Space Hulk. I thought was pretty good as well. I didn't play it that much.
It's isn't very much an adaptation of the tabletop game.
Yeah, very much so. And it's basically very similar to the previous ones, but tighter. You know, I think I played the first one of the new Space Hulk. Like I don't know, I can't remember the developer now, but a couple of years ago maybe. And he was so lumping to play. It all feels much more snappy, but also you get to play as the Tyranids.
Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, but they're both good games, you know, in a way that Warhammer 40K has kind of had some questionable games.
They're all just so hit and miss. That's the thing. Like there's been plenty of good ones as well. It's just there's so many of them that, although I suppose there haven't been really that many flat out like absolutely great 40K games. Whereas I'd say that I think Total War Warhammer is genuinely very good.
Yeah.
Like without that kind of compromise.
And without compromise kind of games. I mean, you know, Mechanicus is compromised, but in the sense that it's clearly made by a really small team, but they've invested their resources in the best places. Like they got a really good soundtrack. They put everything into the strategy. The writing is good, but like it's all text and, they've been very economical. It's a very contained game, but like I can see myself playing it a lot actually.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd like to play it actually now that it comes with that recommendation. Yeah. And it's nice that, I think the license is so played, but it's nice that people feel that they no longer, if you're making a Warhammer 40K game, it doesn't have to be a Space Marine game.
Yeah.
Like, cause the Adeptus Mechanicus is kind of like a cool.
And they're really fun. Like,
there was very fun sort of side of the Imperium.
Because it's able to start with kind of like the introductory movie kind of has sort of this sort of robotic voice is talking about kind of how he said goodbye to his flesh and welcomed the steel of machines, in which the purity and your flesh is weak. And it's really having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, they're just the tech startup bros of 1,000. Well, that's the thing is they're powered by big data. And the answer to everything is like add another skull with a computer in it to your body. We've built a very small submarine. It doesn't help at all.
And like there's loads of room for sort of interpret, like, sort of you can just treat everybody as kind of all your characters as just, fodder as well, which is, nice little thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be the XCOM game where you get really attached to your individual Skitarii or something.
Well, yeah, the Skitarii you do, like you just get rid of them, that's fine. But the old tech priests that you take in, so far there has been one mission where I've earned one. So you started with 2, now I have 3. If one dies, then they're gone for good. With all of the resources I put into them. And I should say that as that time ticker goes on in the mission that you've taken into the tombs, when that mission is over and you succeeded, you go back to the ship and then that number is then added to a percentage gauge, which is towards how aware the Necron are of you, and kind of it's the end of the game. So the longer you take in all things, it all kind of adds up to your kind of overall. It's not completion, like Doomsday.
The Tomb Awakens kind of thing.
Yeah, Doomsday.
Oh god. It's Doomsday. That's what Tuesday originally means.
Speaking of tombs, how have you set up your tomb for playing Artifact?
Oh, that doesn't make any sense at all, Alex. But go for it.
What I was going for there was
let's unpack this.
You're playing a lot.
Yeah,
you might die.
Right, yeah. Yes. I mean, I get that a tomb is somewhere you reside for a long time. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, probably not the greatest segue in the history of this podcast, but a worthy effort, and I appreciate you attempting.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, so,
Some artifacts are in tombs.
yeah, sometimes you find an artifact in a tomb, you could have gone with that, yeah. A tomb is somewhere you go that follows your dotage. And this is the
Wow.
Surely there's a Dota hero with tomb in the name.
Yeah.
Tomb Lord.
Is there a skeletal one?
Dark Tomb Lord.
Undying's,
That's gotta be a Dota hero.
Undying's E ability is Tombstone, so that would do it.
I mean, this gets richer and richer.
It does. Yeah, I mean, honestly, almost all words are in almost all games. So, you could have said, Tom, you've been playing Hitman. You've been interring people in various places of permanent rest.
There's a strong connection between tombs.
I'm pretty sure, there are at least one level where you go into a tomb.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if you can push someone into a tomb to kill them.
But yes, no, to answer your question, Alex, I think, yes. So, my interment in Artifact is ongoing. So, I can talk about Artifact now, but I haven't been able to talk about Artifact for a while. But as of today, I have now played 90 hours of Artifact.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and it came out on Sunday night into public beta, but I've had it for a little bit longer than that. And, so I played a lot of it. And I've had, and I think I am, a bit in love with it as a bit of game design. So I want to talk about that first because, I am really aware that if I had been able to talk about it last week, I probably would have said a very different set of things or like I'd be in a very different place emotionally with it. And so, so this, if you're not aware, is the Dota 2 card game. It's Valve's first game in quite a few years, since Dota 2, I think. So, which was 5 years ago now. So, and it is made in conjunction with Richard Garfield and Scaff Elias, who are both pretty integral to, well, obviously integral to Magic the Gathering and its subsequent competitive scene. And it is also a Dota tie-in in a bunch of ways. So it's about as like up my alley as you can get. And so I've had the experience for about a month now, or more of learning to play the game in a very specific circumstance. In a specific circumstance, I think have given me a really good appreciation for its design. In a closed beta environment designed to test the balance of the game where every card is available and the only people to play against are 300 professional card game players. So sort of scratching out about a 50% win rate in that environment was really satisfying. Since then, obviously it's now in public beta and it's more or less in its release form. I suspect it will continue to change a lot. But before I get into the way my feelings have changed slightly, I'd like to talk about why it's so good. Because I think that's the thing that's probably the most important thing at the end of the day and why it's such a beautifully designed card game. Like, I feel now that I will still say I think it's the best card game I've ever played in any medium, including physical card games. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. And also it's interesting because it could only really have been done digitally. And as far as I'm aware, the genesis of the game is not Valve saying, as some people might cynically believe, how do we cash in more on Dota? It is Richard Garfield going to Valve and saying, I want to make this game, but I couldn't make it in real life. And the fact that there are things about it that map cleanly onto Dota, is a kind of a nice bit of simpatico. And clearly a benefit from a business point of view, but rather than it being just sort of the raison d'etre for the whole thing. I've seen people making fun of how complicated it is, and it is. That is the other way in which it's a Dota card game. It's a little bit Calvin Ball, but basically, so the way, what it is it's a, sort of Magic the Gathering or Hearthstone style card game that takes place across 3 simultaneous games, or boards, or lanes, if you will. And, play proceeds from kind of left to right. You have one hand of cards that you top up at the start of the turn, but each lane has its own mana pool, which is based on the tower in that lane. And combat is resolved in each lane, or actions are resolved in each lane, almost more like a war game than a lot of card games. It's sort of I go, you go kind of thing. So I play a card or do a thing, you play a card and do a thing. And then when we both pass, we move on to the next lane and resolve it there. And the winner is the first person to destroy 2 towers, and so to kind of win 2 lanes, or to destroy the ancient that lies behind any given tower. So, you either have to, and so I really could bang on for a long time about
so either divide your strength across 2 lanes, or you focus it on 1 lane.
Right, yeah. Like Magic the Gathering, it has kind of card colours. So there's red, blue, green and black cards. And when you draft a deck, you pick you also pick 5 heroes, which are themselves assigned a color. You can only play a card if you have a hero of that color in that lane at that time. Heroes are kind of like big minions from other card games, except they respawn a turn after they die. So, and then you choose which lane they go back to. You can, and then you also, between each, when all 3 lanes are resolved, in the in-between state before you go back to the first lane, you can also spend gold, which is gained from killing creeps and heroes in a shop, and which sells 3 items every time it opens. One of the items is always a consumable, picked from like a random set of, which are randomly assigned purchasable consumable, like a healing item, a teleport scroll, card draw potion from a random set. One of them is always a random item from the game, just like a random item from the whole selection of items in the game. And the other one is a random top card from an item deck that you construct on the side. So you construct 2 decks and a hero set. And you determine what order the heroes spawn in and all this stuff. There's so much, and I really could go bang on about it. The things to drill down on why it's so good for me is, it is fundamentally really, really interactive. Like, I've been playing a lot of card games recently. I think I'm really into just card game design, I think. And, I think something I look out for is like, I really want a card game that approaches a level of interactivity where simply planning ahead or having the best cards or building a deck that can execute a certain combo that will win a lot of games isn't kind of enough, because there are enough moving parts that you have to be able to adapt to the situation. Artifact achieves this in loads of different ways. So for example, there's so much to do with like, positioning and who attacks whom. But like at the start of every round, each player gains 2 regular creeps, like 2 regular melee creeps. But which lanes they go to is randomized. So they might go to the same lane, they might go to different lanes. And you can see this before you deploy your heroes, but this has a huge effect on who's going to end up attacking whom in this successive turn. It has loads of potential bearing and interaction with spells, the board state generally. And that is one small thing that means that your plans can never be fully set, because you have to account for what might happen. And you can be completely screwed over by it, and you can have the game saved by these sorts of elements of random chance. You also have a much bigger deck, than you can, it's minimum cards, 40 cards, and no max. And card draw effects. There's quite a lot of card draw effects, but not loads and loads and loads, and certain colors have more access to them than others, which means that in a given game, you're probably not going to see your entire deck. And that, is actually quite different to a lot of card games I've played recently, where the sort of assumption is that by the end, you're both kind of like only a couple of cards away from having seen every card.
How many cards are in your hand?
You start with 5, and you draw 2 a turn.
Right.
But there's quite a lot of effects that will like empty your hand faster than you'll draw, basically. Whoop, bong, that's the whiskey o'clock bell. And so those sorts of things help. And so the reason I'm saying all this, because all this has a bearing on the monetization structure of the game and the importance of, for example, rare cards. Because if you have a system that actually you don't see every card in your deck every single time you play it, simply having a particular card isn't always going to be, isn't always a guarantee that you'll see it in a match, etc. There's the level of complexity is actually pretty staggering, I think. And at its best, it's genuinely like one of the most exciting strategy things I've ever done. Cause there's really nice things like the fact that you have 3 lanes and you can afford to lose in one of them. For me, fundamentally changes how certain kinds of matchups feel. Cause within its sort of system, within its sandbox, you definitely have the concepts of like an aggro deck or a control deck or a combo deck. Those things do exist, like old Magic the Gathering kind of ideas. But when you're up against, you normally, and obviously decks will have how they want to win built into them if they've been built well. But the thing I really like about it is you can see that stuff coming as soon as your opponent starts building it in one lane. And they've kind of got to be able to make it happen in 2 in order to win the game. You can get in a scenario where they're doing so much damage in a lane that they can bash through the tower and then get all the way to the ancient and end the game. But that itself is a very specific kind of strategy. And that for me changes the nature of its back and forth quite substantially. And it allows, I think from a design point of view, it allows things to be a little more lethal and more scary than you might have to do in another game like this, where it's like, well, this just ends the game. And in this, it doesn't. This just ends the game in 1/3 of it. And there are almost always counterplays built into the system.
It's interesting how the Witcher's card game, Gwent, is a 3-round thing where you can afford to lose one of those rounds.
Yeah.
And in a sense, you could almost win one thing in Gwent is like, if you can make the enemy expend all their cards trying to win this round and you win it, you've kind of won the game at that point as well.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Like, a lot of my favorite strategies that I've picked up in terms of while learning the game have been like having a way to sort of consistently stall your opponents, the lane they're obviously favoring without actually letting it get out of control, but also without really killing them, because there's lots of like, there's so much depth to it. Like, when you start playing, you get really obsessed with the idea of like, if I can kill heroes, I can stop them playing cards. And sometimes that's definitely the right move. But like, I won a game just earlier before you guys came over based on the fact that I just let one hero stick around on 1 health. Because the fact that heroes respawn means that,
so it was weak and you wouldn't.
Yeah, no, it means they're still doing damage, but I can afford the amount of damage they're doing. Yeah. What I don't want them to do is respawn and go somewhere else. Like, if I trap them here, their player either has to buy them an item to move them. You buy like a blink dagger and blink to another lane, or buy a teleport scroll to get them out. If I can just sort of hold them here, they're kind of not, well, at least I can predict what they're doing. There's all this nuance. There's an initiative system, so the first player to pass goes first in the next lane.
Huh.
So if I do something, and then you choose not to do something and you pass, and then I pass, that initiates the combat, and then we go to the next lane. And that is tremendously important. There's a special card quality that means that the cards that steal initiative, but without them, often, and it's very often, sometimes the best thing to do is not spend any mana. Just leave it. Like, I'm happy enough. I could gild this lily in this lane, but I'm happy enough with it. And what's more important is that I play the first card in the next lane. Which could be something that maybe stuns the heroes before they can use any cards, or kills those heroes, or there's a great card, Enough Magic, which is based on the Fuck Magic Dota meme, which is basically just a guy punching a wizard in the face and it skips the card phase completely. And so it just means go straight to combat phase. There's all this stuff built in, and like I say, I could bang on for a long, long time about just how cool this is when it all kind of comes off. And I've had some really great games throughout the beta and since it went to public beta this week. And I think it's I'm really excited to see what happens next for it. However, I'm a little worried for what happens next for it as well, because I think, and I'm a bit surprised by this, I think Valve have been quite naive with the business model.
Yeah, I heard Artifact is bad because you have to pay for everything.
Yeah, so
it's what the internet told me.
So here is the thing.
Yeah.
That is not an unpopular viewpoint at the moment. And it is certainly a bandwagon. And there's a lot of kind of like, I wrote a guide for PC Gamer that I put a lot of myself into, because it's like, here's the accreted kind of like, not just what cards are good, but here's, my thoughts on the game, basically, like as a strategy. And I'll link to it because it's, in terms of getting stuck into why it's cool, that's, writing a guide is sometimes a way of expressing, this is why I think this is really interesting. Cause all the things that can happen in it. And all the comments are like, don't play it, just don't play it. It's pay to win, blah, blah, blah. So there's, the tantrum force is out on this. And normally I know I have a bit of a habit of wanting to see the other side and protect the developers basically in that scenario. And so in saying I have some problems with this business model, I am not endorsing the kind of, burn it all down type shitstorm currently happening.
Explain what is their argument?
So basically,
what is the model actually?
So the model is this. I thought it was going to be fine specifically because it's very close to tabletop games. So that's an interesting thing to consider as I explain what the model is. It's the same as Magic the Gathering in some crucial ways. So you spend $20, I don't know whatever the pound equivalent is, on the starter set, basically. The starter set contains 2 full decks of cards, 2 pre-constructed decks, but obviously all the cards that are in those decks, that between them give you all 4 colors. So it's like it's a red-green deck and a blue-black deck.
Is that deck set? Is every owner of the starter pack?
Yes, every owner of the starter pack has that stuff. You also get 10 packs of cards, each pack contains 12 cards and is guaranteed to contain a hero, and a rare card. Although artifact card rarity is a lot more flat than, in terms of its relationship with power level, than in other card games. There's common, uncommon, and rare, and some of the best heroes in the game are commons. There's not, you know what I mean? There's not like a kind of, this is a gold shiny Charizard, therefore it's the best thing in the world. That is not how it works.
Because the complexity lies in the overall
usage. Yeah. There are certainly better and worse heroes, I think. There's definitely a tier list, but the rarity is relatively evenly distributed up and down it, with a few notable exceptions, but you notice them because you don't have those cards. But like, and you also get 5 tickets. And I get onto tickets because tickets are going to be contentious, with me, Chris. And so you get that stuff, and then you can then subsequently pay, $2 for, a card pack, basically. Or I think it's £4, so probably like, $6-ish for 5 tickets. And that is how the game is supported. So the issue I have with this is that, there is no way to earn any of those things in game without spending more money at all. Like, there is, at present, no way to earn additional card packs simply by playing the game. And so initially I knew this going in, and I sort of defended it a little bit on the basis that I play a lot of physical games, I play a lot of tabletop games, and I accept that. I accept in real life that if I want to go and win prizes playing X-Wing, for example, I buy a ticket to go to a tournament.
Dear Fantasy Flight, I've played your game for 15 hours.
Cards, please.
So yes, could you please send me a plastic?
Right. So, the big thing I missed completely. It's not active yet because it won't go active till the game goes live at the end of November, but, you can buy and sell your cards on the Steam marketplace. What you can't do is trade them with other people. And there's a very clear, the blindingly obvious reason for this, because as soon as you allow trading, you open the door to third party reselling. And that absolutely would happen. Like it would absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind, that would happen. But it means that it has basically the entirety of the Magic the Gathering business model, from buying packs to selling and trading cards.
So you sell it for cards and then you put the money
except towards other cards, right? Yeah. Like, the exception being that, you and I can't swap cards with each other.
Which you could.
Game. So suggestion 1 from me, Chris, is this. They need to add trading, but I absolutely respect the need to also protect the game from third-party betting sites and all of the things that have bogged down similar mechanics in Counter-Strike. So the way you have to do it basically is like you can only trade with someone if they've been on your friends list for 2 weeks and you've played 3 full games of Artifact with them. That would be my kind of criteria, because that would shut down all the bots that normally facilitate those kinds of Steam interactions. Short of better control over Steam's API for that kind of thing, I think that's how you handle it. People would get frustrated because it's like, we just became friends and I want to trade, but it's like, live with it, right? If
you're not real friends.
If you're still friends, if you're still friends in 2 weeks, you can have my spare Sven. So the other thing that was an issue with this, which they did catch already, is, because, everyone has the same basic set of cards, and you basically never need more than 2 of the same hero. For example, anytime you pull, so I got really unlucky and pulled out of my 10 initial packs, I pulled the same hero 4 times, and it was one of the heroes that's in the base set. So when the marketplace opens, that thing is utterly worthless, right? Like that is, that was Sven. No one is ever going to buy my spare Svens. They will never, ever, ever do it. Why would they? It's one of the cards every single person who has access to the game is guaranteed to already have, and that you'll only ever need 1 of. So
even putting those in the cards that can be in a pack is kind of a dick move, or it's just filler, right? It's like putting polystyrene in there.
Yeah, exactly. And I suspect that I've met this dev team, and I suspect this was a very Valve decision. Like, well, in 2 years there will be 6 different card series, and the starter set will have rotated. So Sven needs to be in a card set, because otherwise he will not be attainable in 2 years. But this is not the problem of today. This is the problem of 2 years from now. And so what they are doing is, they've announced this, they haven't implemented it yet, is that you will be able to break down break down unwanted duplicates into, tickets.
So what do you need tickets for?
I'll get to, thank you for asking, Tom. And this is where we get into my big kind of, with the game. So, tickets are used for basically competitive play. So at the moment, I think they'll have sort of, rotating tournament formats, but at the moment you can, you use a ticket to enter what's called a gauntlet. And in a gauntlet, you play until you lose twice. And the exact format changes. So, you can play what's called a constructed gauntlet, where you just pick one of your decks, and you lock in with that deck, and you're going to play this deck for this gauntlet. And if you win 3 games, you get your ticket back. If you win 4 games, you get a pack of cards and your ticket. And if you get 5 games, I think it's 2 packs of cards and a ticket. 1 win, 2 wins, you don't get anything. And after 2 losses, the gauntlet ends.
So you can earn cards by playing.
But only if you have a ticket, which you bought.
Right.
So when I say you can't, without paying, there's no way into that. There's also draft, which is, based on a Magic format where you basically you take it in turns to split 5 packs of cards with other players. Each of you ends up with a stack of about, 50 to 60 cards. And then you build a deck out of that and you play. And that is an interesting format on paper because it's about your ability to understand the whole game, not just one combo or something like that, and improvise a deck. And then there is Keeper Draft, which costs 2 tickets and 5 unopened packs of cards to enter. But what that does is basically the same as draft, except you get to keep all the cards you draft afterwards. So that's where the cost of the 5 packs goes in. And I've played all of these and I've found them all stressful and not a lot of fun because of the buy-in and for different reasons. So I put down basically the money to enter on a Keeper Draft, and I was building a particular deck, but I was always on the lookout for cards I knew I didn't have in my broader collection because I get to keep these ones. So that completely influenced my kind of strategic decision making. And then right at the end, a hero popped up that I know I really like because from the previous phase of the beta. But it was completely wrong for that, deck I was in the process of building, but I took it because, maybe I wouldn't see it again. You know what I mean? It was that sort of strange pressure. That's the most extreme example of it. But even within, because of all that variant stuff I've spoken about, the interesting variant stuff, that really stings if it knocks you out of something you feel like you paid to enter. And it's weird because I've been in exactly that situation with physical games in tabletop tournaments, but there's something slightly different about this because it feels like this is my only real chance to earn more cards without buying in. And so I won a game this morning from a terrible start, and I won it on the 12th round through basically just sheer kind of brain energy. And I was so excited afterwards that I had to walk around the house and drink a cup of coffee. And I kind of wanted to go to sleep. I was so excited. And that is the power of the game. That's what's good about it. And that in a sense was enhanced slightly by the fact that I had there was risk. I had something on the line. It was my first game of a new gauntlet. I didn't want to lose it. But similarly, I lost a game earlier basically on the random distribution of a creep and the random distribution of, if something doesn't have a target in front of it on the board, it has a 25% chance of attacking to the left, which is normally the creep ahead of it and to the left, 25% to the right and 50% chance going forward. And so if this one particular creep had gone forward or right instead of left, and the creep hadn't spawned to its left, I would have won the game. And then that creep spawning in that spot was a 1 in 9. So it was like a 1 in 9 and a 1 of 4 didn't go my way and I lost. And there's something you could do about it, but in that moment, maybe, if I rewind my brain 6 turns to find the butterfly flapping its wings moment where I could have changed the future, maybe. But in that moment, it just feels fucking awful. Cause even though you just thrown ATP after it, it's still ATP. You know what I mean? It's and I feel like they have been a bit naive about how that feels when you don't have, when your ticket count is so scarce. You can't buy individual tickets, so you're spending, $5 a time to participate. And to clarify, you don't have to play these modes, but they're the only modes that earn you things. And games really condition you to see the modes where you earn things as the real ones.
Presumably this is are you also earning some kind of rank as well? Oh, so
zero progression. Other than this, there's zero progression.
But if you don't use tickets, you can play just sort of friendly games.
You can play against AI, you can play against friends, you can play against random matchmaking. Yeah, there's a full game there, but but it's interesting. I can think around it, but I can't feel around it. And there's a feeling about I wish I was getting something out of these games, my time with it. I think so in addition to ad trading, heavily limit who you can trade with, my other suggestion would be, I think they should give every player 1 or 2 free tickets every day. I don't think that would eat tremendously into even one.
The weirdest thing is, that's so as soon as you said tickets, because Mario Run on your phone has tickets in it, and the tickets will allow you to play a little kind of mode where you're racing a level with one of the people on your friends list. And they clearly realized that people, because you have to buy these tickets, but they accumulate over time, and so I've got 100 because I never play the game, and so I've never been, but if you're into it, then you presumably have a scarcity of them.
You could have like a thing where if you're out of tickets, you get one a day.
Yeah.
All I would do is you get one a day for logging in.
Yeah.
It's every billions of games do this. Like,
but then are there login bonuses?
No. There's nothing.
So weird. There are so many.
It's not a free-to-play game. There's nothing like that.
But it's like they've taken some sort of slices of free-to-play kind of,
I don't think they have.
Iconography, but sort of.
Not really.
But not in a kind of.
Because the ticket analogy is strictly like how a tabletop tournament works. Like, it's,
But it's also a bit like the sort of energy system in, where you kind of.
That I think is where this gets interesting. Because I genuinely, from talking to them, I don't think they even really see it as equivalent to a free-to-play game.
Because, well, it isn't. I mean, because you've paid 15 quid
But
on.
like, I don't think they have necessarily fully considered where their analogies line up.
Right.
Right? It's not like, tickets are an analogy in this because it's a digital game. Tickets are an analogy in free to play because it's a free to play fucking money wang system where it's beyond any kind of physical constraint.
Yeah.
This is the bizarre fucking circular design thing. This is a digital version of a physical thing that could only be digital, but is mimicking the payment structures of a physical thing, except in one instance, trading, where the digital environment prevents that thing from being constrained in the way that it would be in real life. That is kind of nuts, but I just don't think they've. So I think
presumably, like the reason it's not free to play is for cheating reasons, right? Because that's
maybe, yeah.
I think that's why CS:GO is not free to play. It's just that because the Steam account is free. And, if the game is also free, they had this problem with TF2, to some extent. I don't know what they did to solve it. Maybe they didn't solve it. And that's why they haven't done another free to play game. But,
no, it's free.
Oh yeah. Basically the cost of getting caught cheating, if the game is free, is effectively zero because you just create a new account. And if you pay for the game, then there's some risk to cheating, and there's a reason not to just try every single exploit ever.
Like, I kind of get it, because if it was possible, like, I feel like they back themselves into a corner, because if it was possible to farm, cards in-game, then, and sell them on the Steam Workshop, then the whole thing becomes a factory for generating income on Steam.
But why expose themselves to any of this at all? I mean, I can see part of the ticket system is about raising stakes and giving you a sense of progression in a game which doesn't really have progression, where, like, StarCraft has a ladder system. Like, there's your sense of kind of stakes. Every game you play on the ladder has stakes. Like, it's just built into the structure. And then there are kind of, but it's a paid for game, and that would, like, Artifact could surely fit into that if you're going to get rid of all the tabletop sort of.
It's funny, like, idealistically,
why not just have all the fucking cards? Because if the variety and excitement of a game doesn't lie in your, the cards you've collected, like it does in something like Hearthstone. Right? Why the fuck just sort of lean on the game design, which, like, this incredibly complex kind of multi-layered game design instead?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, and I'm interested to see I suspect the future holds some big changes for it. One thing I don't want to do is come down on it finally until it's out, because, like, I don't believe that Valve make infallible decisions by any means, but I suspect there's, I really want to see what the impact the marketplace has on it, in terms of the value proposition of it. Because if, for example, it is relatively affordable to simply buy the cards I want for a deck I like when you can import decks through an API, basically. So third-party websites will be able to interact with them. If you load up a deck in the in-game deck builder where you don't have all the cards in order to build it, there's a button at the bottom to just buy all the cards you need to finish that deck.
Oh shit, so you don't need to buy the packs at all?
No, that's the point of the Steam Marketplace.
I see.
So you buy them from other people on Steam. It would just find the cheapest of each for them, right?
So that doesn't work yet.
Doesn't work yet. It'll only start working next week. I really want to see how it feels when that is the case. Because if the cards are, it's not a huge card set. Like, if all the cards are abundant enough that, like, it ends up being, maybe this public beta is a weird period for the game, but not representative. And what ends up being the case is like, everyone just accepts, you do the $20 buy-in, and then you buy the rest of the cards for $10, and that's it. And there's some value to Valve in the price of the rest of the cards being some strange fluctuating kind of X number. I don't know. Like, I find it really interesting because idealistically I like so much about it. Like, I love its design, obviously, but like, I like the idea that there's no leveling up. Honestly, like that is, you know, I would defend the fact that there's no card crafting system because I feel like breaking cards down into dust and using it to forge different cards is a way that Hearthstone masks its own exploitative practices. Because what it teaches you to do is to see a pack of cards that you paid for where you got nothing that you wanted as valuable in some way because this rare card you got a duplicate of breaks down into 1/100th of a different rare card. Like that, you know, CCGs being what they are, like that system isn't perfect either. And I really like that they're trying something different, but it has given me like, it's a game that can give you bad beats as it is through its design. And I can be happy with that without this broader framework. I'm just not sure the ticket thing works as it currently is. That said, like literally if it was like every day you log in, you get one free ticket, I would log in every day to just do my gauntlet for the day very happily. And I'd probably play it forever. It's because each of those runs represents, if I don't do well, ATP of my human money. It sort of adds this twist to the knife that I'm not sure works for it at all.
What's interesting for me is that you enjoyed it like unfettered, in an unfettered way, you know, when you had the entire kind of, you know, earlier kind of build. And then when you play it in the way that everyone else does, you feel the monetization and you wonder how its developers could have ever felt it, because I don't know how testers can ever get across the sensation they have. I mean, they can, you know, you expressed it well here. You know, I just wonder how
that's what this beta is, I guess, because it's a closed beta, right? You need a key to get into this. You need a
key, yeah, and pre-ordering doesn't even get you a key. So yeah,
so that's what they're testing now, and they're finding out.
Like, so they moved very quickly last week on adding this system to break down cards into tickets. My problem with that system is simply that in order to have cards spare, you need to have gotten packs somehow. So you still have to buy into that, essentially. That takes the sting out of a bad beat in the card openings, in the pack opening stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, like, that's one of the reasons I don't want to come down too hard, because like, I was so close. Like, if you'd asked me, like, well, someone did, like, I was at, you know, Crate and Crowbar Minis monthly event in the weekend, and someone asked me, you know, you excited for Artifact? And I had to kind of do a face and say, like, yeah, it's probably my game of the year, like, far and away my game of the year. Like, it's, I genuinely love its design, and it sort of bothers me that, like, the sordid method of coin has dragged me away from it, because I'm usually such an idealist about this kind of thing. But I feel like they, as of time of recording, Wednesday of the public beta, it's got a week to go. I really want them to see them just make a few more generous decisions. Like, if it launches into the wild with the ability to run a tournament every day, as long as, you know, you keep playing or whatever, I'd happily recommend it to anybody. But I think as it is right now, they need to think a bit hard about how they don't make people hate it, basically.
It's so weird. Like, on the one hand, part of me thinks, like, you're Valve, you got all the money in the world, just err on the side of generosity, and you can't go far wrong. Like, you'll make some money from it, it'll pay for its costs, for God's sake. Like, it's not gonna make less money than you spent making it. If you just charge $20 from it and nothing costs money, that would be the case. But then the other side of me thinks, like, Valve are always a company that think super long term. They're like, we'll be around in 50 years. And I think they want just, they already have with Dota 2 and CSGO, like, these big money hoses that are just pouring in all the time, and Steam, like the entirety of Steam, that's another money hose they're pouring in. And I think they just want as many of those as possible to just in case, like, 3 of them fail tomorrow. They'll still be alive because this 4th one is still going.
But like, I get the feeling that some of this stuff isn't purely about money. It's because they know that the invocation of money is a driver for play. You know, just the frisson of risk and the frisson of earning and the kind of all those things, I think, that money heightens.
That's the thing they can't test. Like, they can't know that because they haven't. Yeah. Even if they did play with their own money in testing, they all get paid really well.
Hey, why don't we just, for $100? I felt more excited.
What can one hero cost? $10?
Yeah. Like, this is the thing, like, which one of these is a 50? Like, this is the thing. At the moment, it feels like a rare thing for Valve. It feels like someone is standing on the money hose by accident. Like, I genuinely, like, it's like, why isn't it coming out? Like, I genuinely think this is actually a very sensitive time for the game. And I mean, they have fucked up so many times with Dota, like, in terms of communication. They fuck up all of the time.
Yeah.
Valve, like, and I was out there and I spoke to them and I said, how are you going to avoid fucking up communication? And I didn't say it in exactly those terms, but it wasn't far off. Well, because, I mean, basically what I said was, this game is going to require really clear communication when people are putting the money on the line for cards and things. You're going to really have to express things like balance changes very, very well. You don't have a good track record. Like, you just don't have a good track record with this. Like, how are you going to fix that? And like, well, we're trying a few things. And like, this public beta is the time to get it right because this is the first impression being set.
It's like, yeah.
And it feels like the very long-termist view doesn't pay attention to like, this first impression matters. And game communities bandwagon. They bandwagon on your service, Steam, against other people's games. Yeah. And I don't think Valve are immune to that.
No.
I think if this gets review bombed to fuck, and it could, like, I have problems with it, but I don't feel caught up. That is not a cause. I will change my mind tomorrow if they make the right decisions, but that is not how this audience works. And they have been so slow to accept bandwagoning as a bad data force, basically, that like, it's not rational actors. It's
Let's see how they feel when they get review bombed.
They all for sure as shit have a histogram of how bad they're getting review bombed on Steam. You'll be able to see a beautiful graph of exactly when it happened and why.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, like, essentially this one will get punched in the face and the rest of Valve will earn a free action. Like, they are the Adeptus Mechanicus of games development.
Oh my god, they really are. They genuinely, they are perfect.
It is heresy to harvest this Xenos technology from Blizzard.
Probably are factions within Valve who are like, no, don't take anything from Blizzard.
Exactly.
No, but we can learn so much from this alien tech.
No. Burn it. The data is truth.
Shit.
Yeah, they really are.
Fucking hell, my mind is blown here. They are.
Yeah, they unscrewed all the green lights.
All they did was like, they just read a load of old Warhammer stuff and just thought, that's our
the
company.
faction we're going to be. Yeah, because Blizzard are the orcs. That's the way this
Yeah, just sort of like cobbling stuff together from other people's stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Goes fast though. That's more accurate than I had to worry about. But yeah.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's Calypso Entertainment?
What Warhammer faction? A Calypso?
I think they might be German.
As in like the kind of German adventure game kind of
I think so, yeah. It just popped into my head.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
This is a podcast.
Are they big enough to be one of the factions in Warhammer? Because there are a lot of factions in Warhammer, but not relative to the number of publishers there are in the games industry.
No, not at all.
And obviously, like EA and or something would be.
I think like
it would be the
Imperial Guard. Yeah.
Who is Tau? Who's the Tau of the games industry?
High tech, very kind of mono-cultured, recruit other companies.
There's a little bit of Activision in there.
I was thinking Riot.
I'm trying to think of the Eldar, some sort of extremely old group of developers.
I think it's that entire. I think the Eldar are like that generation.
Looking Glass gang.
No, yeah, well, I think it's
all of the game designers on Kickstarter trying to fund remakes.
Bring it back, games. The hedonism
the
of
Dark Eldar are the
Starbreeze. It's like, we accidentally birthed Slanesh in the 90s. That's not going back in the bottle.
Is Chaos like modders?
I don't know, because, what is, I don't know. I don't know what
Or
Chaos.
maybe indies.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe the analogy falls apart at a certain point. But yeah. But no, I like the Valve Adeptus Mechanicus thing quite a lot. I don't know who the Necrons are really, because it's not really like an antediluvian force that slumbers. I know, tabletop games. The Necrons are
yeah, because they came back.
Yeah, exactly. They've
always been here, but now they come back.
Yeah, exactly. And so in some ways, Artifact is Mechanicus. Adeptus Mechanicus taking on the Necrons and struggling to know what to learn from this antediluvian robot menace.
That explains it.
Good. Good.
Really, really got on top of things.
Yeah. Tom, you've just been getting on top of things in order to shoot sniper rifles at people, right? I just want to compete with Alex for worst segue.
Right, yeah, this is a stretch. And we're all just talking about like games where you kill people. There's plenty of common threads here.
Yeah, you've been paid a lot of money in the game in order to kill someone. That's like paying to win. If you're
They paid me to win.
Yeah, if Agent 47's clients are playing their own version of they unlock a very shiny bald man.
I would love to tie this into the plot of Hitman Season 2, but I didn't follow the plot of Hitman Season 2
Hang
at
on,
all.
there's a plot.
Yeah, and there really is, and they want you to care, but I don't.
Because Hitman 1, as in the new Hitman 1, that had a plot, but it was so utterly kind of
I didn't
separate.
understand it at all.
It is, yeah, it's similarly separate here. So it's just Hitman Season 2. It's called Hitman 2, but I'm going to call it Hitman Season 2 because there's already a game called Hitman 2, and for fuck's sake, stop calling your games things that already exist. And it's, I want to say 5 or 6 missions, or locales that have missions in them. And in between them, there are cutscenes, and that is it, plot-wise. Like, it's still,
yeah, right.
I mean, to a similar extent as Season 1, there are sometimes story objectives in the levels. Like, if you remember in Sapienza, you're there to kill 2 targets, but you also have to get some kind of virus because of plot.
Was that part that I totally missed that the virus is any kind of plot?
Yeah, you have to do it. It's one of the...
Shit, I just thought it was just...
I mean, it's like...
do.
I think the lady is the scientist who's developing that or something.
Hey, you're really into lore.
I pay so much attention. There's some kind of virus. It's plot related. Drop a stalactite on it. That's my advice.
Yeah.
Shoot the stalactite with a silenced pistol. That destroys,
shit,
and that saves you a whole chunk of that game.
That's content, Tom.
But it's very weird playing Season 2 because Season 2 is released all at once. Season 1 was released episode by episode, and we had like 2 months to kind of play each episode before the next one came out. And I'm realizing now how much that game benefited from that. I think I actually probably would have just been like straight up against Season 1 if it had come out all at once. I think I would just be like, I don't like this game. They've ruined Hitman. Fuck this. Because playing Season 2, even knowing that about Season 1, that each locale benefits from like thoroughly exploring it and that you don't really get to it that way. When you just have all 6 missions in front of you and they are sequential, they are plot driven, and you're not forced to play them in order, but you're encouraged to. Like if you try and play one that's ahead of where you are, it says spoiler warning and all this stuff. And so it strongly encourages you to just like play through these 5 missions in order. But it's conflicted about this. It doesn't know whether to advise you to do that because I think it also knows that you get more out of it if you thoroughly explore these locations. But I would complete a mission and I would do it. My rule for like a first time through, and I did this for Season 1 as well, is I don't have to get Silent Assassin, but I have to get like a good playthrough. It has to be like, okay, one person saw me once, or yes, if I replayed, I could have done it so that person's body wasn't found, but I know how to do that. I don't need to actually replay it. And
everyone who sees me has to be very impressed.
Yeah. It's like, I will always end up with like a good score, like close to what you'd get for Silent Assassin, but, if I don't quite get it, I don't care. I'm not going to replay the whole thing just to fix that. And then the interesting thing about replaying is to like pursue the different challenges. Like, how do I kill this guy with a fish? How do I, strangle him with a tape measure? What is this? Like, actually, when you look at the challenges, they are full of stuff where you're just like, wait, what is that? You can do what? There's huge amounts of unexplored, depth there. But when you finish a mission and there's another mission waiting for you, you don't feel like doing that. And the game jumps in, even though it is sequential and it's story driven, it jumps in and says, here are the 3 recommended mission stories for you to play. Do you want to play one of these now? Like right after you finished it for the first time. So the first time it doesn't tell you to do anything in particular. But as with Season 1, you are, as you walk through the level, you overhear conversations and it tells you like, oh, this is a story, you should listen to this, and it will lead to some kind of way of getting to your target. Those again, I still don't really like those. They are, they're an entry point for Hitman, I think. If you don't get Hitman, then this is I've heard from some people who didn't get Hitman before last season, and they found these were a way into the series for them. Like, oh, I just do what I'm told. I just go to point A, then to point B, then to point C, and then I've got the target alone and I kill them. And that's cool. And all along that route that, all the systems are working, it's still a simulation. You can still vary from that if you like.
Is all existing.
Yeah, but if you want it to work, you just have to do what you're told. You just don't do anything else. For God's sake, don't shoot anyone else. For God's sake, don't wear any different disguise. For God's sake, don't deviate from the path. And so for me, that's utterly uninteresting. Like, the whole point of Hitman was coming up with my own solution. And, I didn't like episode 1 of season 1, the Paris mission, because you kind of had to do the stories to get anywhere. They were called something different back then, but now they're called mission stories.
So opportunities?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And then Sapienza I love because you don't need them. They're there, and discovering them is kind of interesting after you've kind of played around with the mission and played as just a freeform thing. And here, I can't say yet whether the missions require them or not, but I ended up doing them the first time through, at least one of them for each thing. Most missions have like 2 or 3 targets, and for at least 1 or 2 of them, I would come across some conversation and it led to some way of me getting to the target, and I just did it, and then I completed the mission with a really good score. And then, it tells
Tom's
you like,
objective
don't you want to do like 3 others? Don't you want to go back and just like kill that same target, but with a different method of getting them on their own, which we will also talk you through and just tell you what to do? And I'm like, no, not really. I do want to replay this mission, but I don't want to do that.
Even if you did like those story missions, you'd still, I think, have the compulsion not to play them again because you got a new thing waiting.
Yeah, exactly. It feels and so what I've ended up doing is just playing each mission once. I've played them all now. I've finished it, technically. I finished Hitman 2, in about, 5 hours or something. And I haven't had a great experience with any of those missions. They were all fine, and I was interested in the environments, and I do want to go back to them, but ultimately I just had sort of 5 or 6 not terribly satisfying experiences, and mostly just doing what the designer told me to do, doing the solutions that are set up for you to do. They work. Well done. You win. And yes, I fucked up slightly on some of them. One body got discovered or one person saw me, and I could just replay and do that exact same thing, but fix that one tiny mistake. I have no interest in doing that. Like, I don't care about the actual score it tells me at the end. And I know there is loads of cool stuff for me, waiting for me in this game when I go back and go to these missions and just look at the list of challenges and just see, like I say, you'll read this list and think, what? You can do this? You can do that? What the hell? Like, there was a mission where there are 2 missions in this, at least 2, that are direct references to previous missions from Blood Money. So one is Blood Money. There was a mission to assassinate someone who's in witness protection in America, and that was called A New Life. And in Hitman Season 2, there is a mission called Another Life, which is set in a very similar looking, sleepy suburban neighborhood, kind of, white picket fences. Is that the one where you
put a rake in front of people?
Yes, that is the rake one.
It makes them go to sleep.
I haven't done that, but I watched a video of you. So actually that immediately answered a question I had when playing, which is, there is one shoulder button is instinct vision and one shoulder button is sprint. And I'm often sprinting, and I also want to use instinct vision to see people through walls. But when you press them both, it actually goes into an item placement mode, like a really involved way of precisely placing an item in the environment. I'm like, why do you have this? I've never really wanted to do that in Hitman. Like in Gone Home, sure, you want to put the photo back on the shelf without throwing it on the floor, but why is it in Hitman? And it's because there's a rake. And if you put the rake in the right place on the floor, when someone steps on it, it spangs them in the head. And they fall
unconscious. Actually kills them. Like at least one of those. That video.
I think it's because that person fell in a pit.
Kill.
They died.
Because they fell headfirst into a shallow pit. Everyone's very fragile in Hitman.
Yeah.
It's the fact that
yes, it shares that with Dishonored. Like if you're trying to do a non-lethal playthrough of Dishonored, everyone you put to sleep, if they fall 6 centimeters, it's like they're fucking dead. You failed the whole thing. Yeah. So it's a weird. I am not saying the game is bad, but it pushes you into a strangely unsatisfying first run through. And like I say, I could have just stopped and played one mission over and over again and got all the value out of it. But it made me realize how much Season 1 benefited from being released that way. People didn't like it, and I totally understand the business decision to not do it that way this time. But for me, I got way more enjoyment out of that series by I was forced to play Paris again and again until I saw what was good about it.
Yeah, I thought it was like, I can completely see why people were grumpy about it, but I think it absolutely worked like that. And then when that next level was released, yes, and you jump into it and kind of explore it thoroughly. Yeah. I think also that it's to release it now when it's competing with so many other big games, whether you've bought them or not, there's so much fucking distraction.
It'll be interesting actually to see how it lasts on this podcast, because I remember we talked many times about how Hitman 1, we were just talking about it for like
you mean Hitman Season 1?
Hitman Season 1, yes. We just kept on talking about it because new missions came out and the elusive targets and various other stuff. They're still going to do the elusive targets.
The Sean Bean is up at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah. And I expect they will do stuff like they did, like, so at Christmas last year, they released like a Christmas version of Paris, for Hitman Season 1. And I'm sure they'll do stuff like that, but will that be enough to bring us back? Like when it's a whole new mission, yeah, I have to play the new Hitman mission, of course. When it's just an elusive target, I can probably skip it, maybe. What's interesting is, friend of the podcast, Jack DeKeat, is the biggest Hitman Season 1 fan that I know of. And he didn't, really click with Blood Money. And what was interesting talking to him about it is that he, likes it a lot more, and he, like, actually doing the mission, it for him is just like the sort of starter course. Like, you do that once maybe and you'd never think about it again, and then you play like the escalation missions and the contracts and all these kind of custom things that plug into that same location but don't involve doing the main mission. Whereas for me in Season 1, I touched the escalation missions and the contract system, and I found both of them quite unsatisfying. Escalation is where it gives you like a target who's not the main target of the mission normally. You kill them, and then it says, okay, now we'll do that, but don't ever get seen. Or now do that, but you have to wear this disguise. And now do that, but there's landmines everywhere. And it's, I don't know, it's sort of theoretically interesting, but when I've just done the hit, I don't want to do the hit again. Especially if it's like, don't get seen. And I already didn't get seen. Like, I didn't get seen in that run through, but I still have to do it again and prove that I can do it without being seen.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I admire the mindset that's able to do that, because I find Hitman so demanding, like, you know, mentally demanding. When I made the hit, I kind of want to rest. To the idea of going back to it.
Yeah, I get it.
But then, you know, I can completely see that, you know, you can speed run it and you can do all sorts of things.
But Jack tells me
there
that
are social aspects to it.
Well, the contract system the idea is you do a mission one way, and by doing it that way, you can then pose that as a challenge to your friends. So, hey, you try and do it that way. And I didn't like that when I played it, because all of my ideas for cool ways to do it didn't count. So the only two things that get communicated to your friends about do it this way is what weapon did you use to kill them and what disguise were you wearing at the time.
Oh, right.
What disguise you're wearing at the time doesn't really matter. Like, using a disguise to get somewhere can be interesting, but whether you still have it on when you fire the shot is kind of irrelevant. And then I would like be pushing people off cliffs. That just doesn't count. It's just like any weapon. Do it however you like. And almost every interesting way I found to kill someone, it would always just say any weapon. So it would never register that. Jack says that's been improved since launch for Season 1, so that might be better. And then Season 2 has Ghost Mode, which is where it's closest to direct multiplayer they've ever had, where you are both going for the same target in the same level, and you see each other, but you're in separate worlds. So if
you kind of affect their world.
Yeah, if I like distract an NPC or if I kill an NPC, it doesn't get distracted or killed in Jack's world. So we played this, it's the Miami level. Apparently they only have the Miami level working in this mode so far. So
that's what keeps playing it.
That sounds really weird. So everything's synced up, and then you sort of increasingly kind of cause kind of chaosy kind of,
and it's competitive.
changes.
So you have the same target, like target's in the same place unless you get to him and somehow move him. And once the other person has shot them, they have like a timer for that not to be noticed. You only get the point if it's an unnoticed kill. And so if like that means no one discovers the body in like 15 seconds or 10 seconds. And also once you kill them, I only have 10 seconds to kill them, or there's no point in doing it at all. So, it's very time pressurey. And I watched, this being played before I ever played it myself and thought, oh, this is kind of interesting because you feel the time pressure and so you race. But if you don't do it, if it's not an unnoticed kill, it doesn't count for anything. You literally get 0 points. And if you kill any innocents, you get negative points. So there's no point in rushing it if rushing it means doing it sloppily. You have to do it really well. And I thought that would kind of push you to play Hitman like Hitman, you know, take your time and stalk the target. But it doesn't. In practice, it's just like the time pressure is so extreme. Because even if you're right that, oh, if I'd shot them then, I would have got discovered. If the person you're playing against shoots them then, doesn't get discovered, you've lost. So you feel like you should have done it, even if that's not true that you should have done it. And so I ended up in fact, all of the points I did score was when I was super hasty and just didn't think about it. Just like, kill the guy, fuck it. I don't know if anyone's watching me. And I got lucky and they weren't. The times when I waited and thought, let's be careful, let's wait for this, Jack would just kill the guy before me and get the points. And okay, fuck. I screwed it up. It's and the strangest thing about that mode is, and the reason I actually don't like it, that problem is, it's partly a psychological problem. I could probably get through it. If I played it enough, I would learn the right way to play it and just get better at it. But, and learn when a failure is just luck and when it was actually my fault. But the thing I just really don't like about it is when your disguise is blown and people are shooting at you and stuff, there's no way out of that beyond, just sprinting across the level, trying to find a dark enough corner with a new disguise in it, which is just sheer luck, basically, unless you know where everything is. And then changing disguise, which even when I do it successfully doesn't feel right. It feels like they would know it's me. Come on. I just walked into a closet and I walked out as someone else. Like when it works, it's not satisfying. And 90% of the time, I just can't find a way to do that. And everyone's shooting at me. And that is true even after this round, even after this kill is over, the other person wins the point and move on to the next kill. You're still in the same disguise. Everyone still knows who you are. Everyone's still shooting at you. And even when they kill you, you respawn in the same disguise and they're all still angry at you. They all still know who you are. There's just no way out of it. It's just like this, once you fuck up, everything is chaos forever. And I would this is the most basic level of description I would have given of Hitman is it's a game that's really, has a really involved disguise system and it's all about social stealth and it's fun and interesting until you fuck up. And then when you fuck up, sometimes you get a cool moment where someone runs in and you just shoot them in the head and it's kind of contained and you lose a few style points or whatever, but the game roughly, carries on, but it's an incredibly fragile balance. And if that one scenario doesn't happen, it just spills out into escalating chaos and it's always garbage from that moment on. I've never enjoyed it after it goes wrong. It's always just I can kill every single person on this level and I will have zero fun. It's not that my mission is scotch because I can't complete it. It just feels like garbage. It's just a bad game at that point. And this is a mode where once that chaos breaks out, they refuse to contain it. There's so many ways they could give you a break and let you reset and let you refresh and get back to the good part of the game, but they just refuse to. It's just, no, you are being shot forever now.
Yeah, they go purist on it.
If you die at Agent 47 in that mode, you should respawn as a different NPC.
Agent 48.
But you know what I mean? If you're going to do that moving target around, I'll just have you be someone else. You're this person now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange, particularly just in a competitive game. You don't really want it to snowball. You don't really want the winning player to continue to have an advantage and the losing player to
just
continue
be
to have
a failure state.
Yeah.
You won.
Dying should reset it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a shorter level, but with actual, if you die, you're out.
Yeah.
The other person gets you won. Doesn't matter what they were doing. You get the reverse bad feeling.
Oh, I discovered a weird, it almost feels like a loophole, but the whole thing about an unnoticed kill is it's only the kill that has to be unnoticed. So you can just run up to the guy and beat him unconscious in front of everybody, get shot a bunch of times, run away, lure all the guards around there and circle back and then just shoot him in the head and unnoticed kill. No one saw you shoot him in the head. They all saw you beat him up. Who can say who shot him in the
technicality.
Head? Could have been anybody.
That is more or less the sort of combination opening scene and resolution of so many American police procedural shows. Where it's these people are in a fight outside the pub, or bar. Then that guy was found shot later. Couldn't have been that first guy. Episode happens. It was. Do you think you will go back and do the digging through it?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you motivated?
I want to, just look at what the challenges are. And I've already, on the last mission I played, I did it kind of too easily. And, basically there's a scene where I became the master of ceremonies at this strange, cult gathering. And my two targets are very, they run the show basically, and one of them was due to appear on stage, and it's absolutely signposts like 5 different ways. There is a pyrotechnics event here. She is going to be standing in a cage next to a huge amount of flame. You are running the show. Would you like to sabotage the cage? Or like, I never got to the point where that was actually an option, but it was like, this cage can be sabotaged. You can absolutely do this. And then I got up there and I didn't, like, there's this huge crowd. You're on the kind of a raised pedestal, and it's in like a castle, and there's some crenellations that she had gone behind, and I was like, we'd gone back from the crowd a little bit, and the whole apparatus is right in front of me, and I'm like, no one is watching me right now. I think I just hit her. Like, I had a giant torch that I'd like symbolically carried the flame from a pile of burning money up to the cage. And the next stage was going to be to light it up. But I'm just like, I think I just hit her with a fucking torch. I think I just knock her out. And I knocked her out. And then, that was a non-lethal thing. So I shot her in the head. And, that body was never discovered. I played that mission for like an hour and a half after that. No one ever found that body. No one ever wondered why the Master of Ceremonies just like ran through the crowd after that and went off and just joined the party and nothing else happened in the whole show. They all stayed there watching that show. Nobody looked slightly to the right and saw the woman dead there. Nobody wondered where she'd gone.
I think, yeah, you're so right that Hitman is such a delicate balance, because I've always found it frustrating, because I actually I get terrible choice paralysis with Hitman. It's like, here's the big level. And hell, I don't know. Help.
Yeah.
And so for the opportunity stuff, I did like, I think I'm kind of with Jack on that like, I actually did them in season 1 because it meant that it was almost like, you know, the thing that like Deus Ex did in like, I think maybe just the first level of Deus Ex, but when just like the fly through of Liberty Island and you see the whole thing and you get that brief sense of what the layout is going to be, but it's not enough for it to not feel pretty vast and kind of complicated. Those sort of initial opportunities runs feel like the guided tour of the level. Like, here is the level. Yeah. Like, my least favorite part of Hitman, or any game like that, is like discovering where the door is that goes to the objective. And you can either have some really, like the sort of Deus Ex Human Revolution system or something like that, where you have like quite obnoxious object highlighting and checkpointing and things. So that I get it right first time, but I feel like I was just following the breadcrumb trail. Or you kind of make that the point and do that the first run is always this like handheld thing, and you just trust that there's a much bigger game.
The structure.
Yeah, like possible. I start enjoying those levels once I know how they're laid out, and that's I find the most enjoyable way for me to learn how they're laid out is to just
Sapienza became a nice place once.
Yeah, I did
probably
it once.
The
like,
second mission.
Was it Morocco in Hitman?
Morocco,
1 was the third one. Like that level was pretty big and complicated, and I found it a little bit overwhelming until I had done a bunch of the challenges, and then I picked my own point to start going off piste and experimenting, and that worked for me.
Yeah.
But similarly, like when you do those challenges, the more advanced things, when you find like quite a cheap way of winning it, or one that sort of breaks the simulation, it sort of feels wrong, and you feel like you should start again even though you've won, because you've sort of gotten out of the spirit of the thing. Like it's such a strange balance.
Yeah.
Like it feels like, you know, if we ever got the question, which game would you add a player GM to, I would 100% add a GM to Hitman. I think that's almost what it's crying out for. It's like when the simulation breaks.
With Tom as the Master of Ceremonies running off into a party, like the GM,
you need someone to be able to say like, send someone to go look for the missing target, right? Like, and obviously maybe better AI could handle that, but that's a bit of a gambit, really. Like ultimately, it's never going to be advanced enough.
I find the series kind of fascinating from a point of view of, like, am I right in thinking that there's been some criticism of season 2 in the sense that it feels a little slight almost, that there isn't, you know, it's these 6 levels and that's it sort of thing, despite the fact there's like incredible depth in each of these missions.
So the thing I've heard, which they absolutely brought upon themselves is, I can't remember if it is 6 or 5, but there were like, let's say there were 5 actual real big hubs like Sapienza site. They're all huge, by the way. They're all the size of Sapienza. There's no small ones this time. But the first mission, the tutorial, is, I think it's like, as a tutorial, it's the best tutorial they've ever done. It's a whole proper mission unto itself, but I think they called it like a location like the others. They pretended it was the 6th thing or whatever.
Right.
And it's not. It's just one building. It's one house. It's nothing like as big as the rest.
Isn't it exactly the same as Hitman season 1's as well?
I don't remember it from a previous.
Because that was in, I think, Phil Savage's review for PC Gamer, that it was the exact same tutorial copy pasted from the first game, down to like inconsistencies in the.
Well,
so the tutorial in the first game was
Hitman 1
in the mountains, and you go on the boat.
Well, as in the
none
old
of this sounds familiar.
Hitman,
The cardboard boat.
So yeah,
right.
Yeah, in season 1 there was this cardboard mock-up boat that you're infiltrating. In season 2, the tutorial is like a mansion on a beach. And,
right.
I think it's really good bit of tutorial design because you are there to gather intel, and there's no one in the house. And I played it as if there might be someone in the house and shooting cameras and worrying about who's going around the next corner. And there's just no one in the house, and you just gather some intel. And then while you're in the house, the target arrives with a huge, like, escort of like 20 armed guards. And in a cutscene, they all take position and stuff. And then you're in the house and you've got to deal with them. But you've already learned the controls and how to move. And also, you know, the layout of the whole place. So you have this great advantage of like, yeah, I've got to deal with some enemies now, but I already feel comfortable in this environment. I know where everything is. And so it takes away that daunting thing of when you go into a new Hitman level of like, I've got to like dodge these people, but I also don't even know where I'm going or how to get to place A or whatever. So I think it's actually the best tutorial they've ever done.
Oh, cool.
But it's not Sapienza. And, so I've heard like multiple people say, yeah, they're saying that this level is like the others, but it's not. It's much less than that.
Yeah. It hides its depth until you've actually invested yourself enough into finding it. You know, when you think about, you know, you compare it to something like Dishonored probably doesn't have that much more environment for you to kind of explore. But the fact that it's strung out in a kind of a campaign, you know, with story elements that gradually introduce you to each bit, whereas Hitman slams you in the face with all of it and you go, it doesn't seem very much. But it, you know, I think that's a central kind of problem with it, really.
There's one mission in Mumbai where the mission story, this highlights both the strengths and the problems with the mission stories, which is the thing is like the target you're trying to find, you don't know what they look like. And so one objective is to find a photo of them. I found the photo of them, but that doesn't tell you where they are. It's just like, if you ever see them, you'll now know what they look like. And all you know is that they're due to get a shave at the barber's. And so naturally you knock out the barber and you dress up as the barber and you open shop and you just like, there's a whole barbering. It's not a mini game, but it's like there's a system for it where there are like an endless stream of customers and 3 customers come up at once and you choose which customer you're going to shave and you take them into your shop and you like, they sit down and then as you shave them, they talk about rumors. And of course it's always about the guy you're here to kill. And I had to like shave like 3 guys before the actual target showed up. Cause you go there to look at your targets and like it will highlight, this guy looks a bit like the photo, and you get close to him and then it says, okay, yes, it is that guy. And cause I'd waited for him so long, I was really resenting this guy and I decided that as a power play, I wouldn't shave him. I'd pick one of the other customers. Like, not you. You will fucking wait, sir. I will get to you and kill you, but not right now. I'm going to shave this guy. He really needs it. And then I did that and I went back out and I finally let the target in. He's like a gang boss. He like runs the whole city. Did
he recognize that you'd kept him waiting?
No, there wasn't like a line about that. But I let him in and then sat him down. And because they know you're dressed as a barber, they know you're shaving the guy, they know everything about the situation, they write a whole lot of dialogue about it. Like you have this, you know, all these kind of, double meaning conversations where like, yes, this is technically something a barber would say, but also you're talking about killing him.
I'll give you a close shave.
Exactly. They're not above that particular line. And the way it's supposed to work is you keep pressing like the continue shave button or whatever until you press the kill button and then there's some scripted kill. But I don't know. I didn't want to engage with the conversation and I also didn't want to do the scripted thing and I quit out of the conversation. And then at that point, I just wanted to like cut his throat with the knife I had in my hand. Like, let's just do that. But there is no option for that. Like he's in a seat and so it would have to have a whole custom animation for it. And although they have like the scripted kill that's going to happen if you carry on with the conversation, but they don't have like an animation for you killing someone in a seat, I guess. So I ended up having to like throw the barber's knife at him. I'm like 30 centimeters from him. And I remembered as I did it, it didn't end up mattering, but like one of the new features of this game is people can see you in a mirror. And so like seconds before he died, he must have had like two thoughts. One, oh, this guy's going to kill me. And B, why is he throwing it? Like, he's 10 centimeters from me.
That's very funny.
But that worked.
Yeah. He failed his shaving throw.
Christ.
I wish I could tell you that the puns in the game are that good. They're not.
Does it still have weird American accents wherever you go?
Well, no. Well, actually, I can't remember if that's true universally, but in Mumbai, for example, they all have sort of accents that sound to my ear, at least like Indian accents. But I heard on the Waypoint podcast that they're the wrong Indian accents. In Mumbai, they don't have that accent. It's the wrong part of India.
You've done it again.
So they have failed to solve that problem.
I saw a really good video set in Mumbai yesterday. A little mini documentary. I recommend looking it up. It's on the New York Times documentary about a family living up in a tower block, and they have a pet rooster, and they can't fucking stand it. Really recommend it. I can't remember what it's called. We'll put it in the show notes.
Shit rooster of Mumbai. Yeah.
Feels like an escapable situation.
This fucking rooster, he looks like a wanker. Honestly.
Good. Well, as you were saying that, our Sins for Heating came on and made a really eerie noise during my time. I was like, it's here. Good. Shall we do some questions?
Yes.
Why not?
What a great... what was that?
We've had a... What? Oh.
Hello.
Hello.
How?
Hello.
A new sound has entered.
Oh, have you come to stay a while? And mayhap listen.
I think, yes.
Let's identify this item. It's Pip.
I don't know any reliable lines from Diablo.
It's the only two are stay a while and listen, and the stranger was an angel. Those are the two I remember.
Does anyone remember what Adria said when you talked to her in Diablo 1?
Oh, what did she say?
I sense a soul in search of answers.
That's good, because we've got questions.
Indeed. Our first stranger is...
You have to do the voice all the way through, sorry.
No, I can't do... I can only say two things as a Decade game.
You've also entered more of Treyguard kind of, enter stranger.
Well, it's actually kind of relevant, because our first two questions are the same question, but I'll read out the first email, which goes as follows. Dear DM and PCs, last year's epic tale of the alchemist Bunva and his poor Chegg finally convinced me to try D&D. I'm in a group with my wife, and we absolutely love it, which is accidentally quite Monty Python-esque kind of sentence. But never mind. Thanks for helping us find this excellent hobby, and are you planning to carry on this year? Rolling for persuasion, Ben. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Mike, who wrote, Hiya, will you guys be doing another D&D special this season? So yeah, this is referring to last year's Christmas time Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Pip, you look like you've lost something on the floor. What are you looking for?
I was 90% sure you would have a D20 somewhere nearby, so I was actually going to roll for perception.
If you look
or
to
persuasion.
you're literally never more than 2 feet. If you look up to your right, there's a little black box on top of that pile of game things. No, that's the one. In there, you'll find a D20.
Cool.
There you go. It's...
Oh, no, I won't be able to see the
No,
result.
throw it on the floor and we'll all look.
Oh, that's a heavy dice.
A 9?
Nine?
It's a 6. It's a 6, everybody. And that concludes this year's Dungeons and Dragons special.
We'll never do one again. Threshold was 13. You fell way short.
It's 6.
Sorry. Them's the breaks.
Thank you for joining us unexpectedly, Pip.
Oh, hello. Yes.
That's it. That is it.
Oh,
So-
I ruined Christmas.
So no, so to the point.
So far, the audience is thinking, no, it's definitely not on.
Yeah.
Definitely not on the RPG. No?
So to the point, yes.
We'll do it. Despite the persuasion check.
No, we do have, we're forming plans in that regard, but there is
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about this.
Pippi's just now learning about these plans.
We spoke about it earlier, but you weren't home yet.
Oh,
So, yeah, we will, do it again, I think. We're just trying to figure out exactly when we're going to record it.
good thing I came in.
Yeah, exactly. And this year, we will be joined by inspiration for both the character of Bunfer and the character of Aljon, Alex Wiltshire.
And
Aljon, I didn't know if I was,
Well, there's
blamed
the whole
for
first arc,
Aljon.
because you haven't watched the first one, have you? Or listened to it?
I'm sorry.
I know, exactly. So Alex doesn't know anything that I did with any of the nonsense he spoke on last year's podcast. So this year, I have to studiously avoid doing joke tributes to our friend Alex, because he clearly doesn't appreciate them.
Or you
also
could
be
really
there.
double down on it, because he's never going to know.
Exactly. Well, no, he'll be there, Pip. That's the issue this time.
I mean, if everybody listened to everything they said, like, then where would we be?
Good.
Different podcast.
We'll obviously probably tease it a bit closer to the time, but yes, in short, it was fun last year, and I'd like to do it again.
Also, to be fair, Tom literally got through saying that he didn't remember a thing that he's been receiving answers to on the previous podcast.
That is true. But yes, so thank you for the kind words about D&D, and yeah, we'd like to do it again, and it should be Alex 2.
Yeah, and Alex 3.
If we can get him, he's very busy.
He's a dickhead.
50% busier than Alex too.
Next, a person from the internet, but I am genuinely not clear if this is the same as a person from the internet who regularly writes into the podcast, writes, building what looked like gaming PC. Dear Flute and Low Bar, a few years back, West Knox College was remodeled. It now looks like a gaming PC.
Shit, look at that.
Wow.
So we're
Looks like
seeing
something
a
Razor
kind of
would
a
make.
relatively
Yep.
low splayed building with
Describe
lots
it
of
to me,
kind
Alex.
of very oblique angled splays of red and greys.
Keep describing it, but don't use the word splay.
They're like scaling triangles in some way. I mean, in the way that is true.
It looks like HP
In one
Omen made
way.
it.
Yeah, and it might have the name Predator.
If you were trying to make
Terrible name for a college.
If you're trying to make if you were trying to make a porn parody of Slay the Spire, you could call it Splay the Sire.
Not a question anyone asked, nor an answer sought.
We said the word splay enough times, it got him out.
Oh, we had one of those wacky breaks, didn't we? Okay, good. There's a few more pictures here. Let's have a look from a different angle. Oh, that just looks like a building.
See, that's when you like turn your peripheral over or your PC, like open it. Oh,
Yeah.
it's not quite so. Oh, look at there's the
Disappointing
there's the tradesman
colourway.
entrance. There's the USB bit.
But it's very much a grey and black and red thing, and I'm aware that with the branding that PC Gamer has gone for, like, maybe I'm not coming down harshly on that, but it's very PC Gamer.
It's been rebranded as the Vision West Nottinghamshire College, so it sounds like a PC now
Vision.
too. Do you know of any other buildings that look or sound like gaming PCs?
For fuck's sake, really?
If you prefer
What are the chances that we would?
buildings that you might prefer, you might be appropriate to look like gaming PCs. Thanks for the pod, a person on the internet. So here's what the building looked like before.
Fucking hell! Look. So now we're seeing an extremely 60s. Like that is the most 60s building in the world. Brick and windows.
I mean, to be
Couldn't
fair,
be.
brick and
Squat,
windows.
lumpen.
It's a trend that's persisted. It's a tried and true method.
It's a square.
Do you know what I think?
Many
I
of my
think-
best houses are brick and windows.
I think that many more gaming PCs should take inspiration from buildings rather than the other way around. I think
Nice
that
save.
we should...
Is it good save? Because I don't have an answer to the other half of the other way around of this question.
Like, imagine if, like, Frank Lloyd Wright had designed gaming PCs instead. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
I'd like more like
You take a lot of space up. They kind of
Or like an 18th century, like, rather flouncy, or like a neoclassical kind of, with pillars and things.
Weirdly, I think actually weird, like those kind of ideas are all in these sort of mad things you get these days with all kind of bits sticking out and that sort of thing. They are very romantic, aren't they?
Isn't it all just RGB lighting nowadays?
Well, this is it. That's the same.
Found the 3 colours of LED, they're done. no further work can be done. I would like a gaming PC that was the shape of the gherkin.
Would you?
In London.
Why?
Because it's an interesting and crystalline shape. That's all the reasoning I did.
Where would you put it?
On my desk. It's like wherever my gaming PC currently is.
It's a bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm with Tom on this.
Okay.
Tom would feel empowered.
My current gaming PC is a fucking box. Like, you can't get much less attractive than that.
Why does it say the Spire attracts so many weird jokes on this podcast?
It's a strange title.
And you're not killing the Spire, are you? You're really climbing the Spire to killing the things inside the Spire.
That's true.
It's a really ridiculously good game, and it's the game, like, it's for me, it's this year's Spelunky, where it's like, that's what I've been playing every fucking week, but I don't talk about it every week because people are sick of it now.
So, would you like a PC in the shape of Slay the Spire?
I don't know what the shape of the Spire is. Well, actually, no, that's not true, because
the name.
I get that it's vertical, but you don't really see it when you're playing. And actually, the map that you're traversing,
it's quite.
Even though it's called Slay the Spire, I just see it as top down. I see it as like,
maybe it fell over.
Because it's so branching and there's no shape to it at all. It's very
doesn't
random.
make any sense at all.
But they did once do a GIF where they pulled out stats of what floor people died on.
That's true.
As various classes, and they depicted that as a vertical picture of the actual Spire and showed these people flying out of the windows at the floor that they died on, which was really good.
Yeah, there's your cannon right there.
Maybe you should have, like, maybe it just is in the gherkin. None of us have been in there. Like, we don't know. It could just
I had a friend who worked there.
Thing.
She might have been lying.
Or, I mean, did she ever describe the internal layout?
I guess not.
There we go.
Does it
I feel
come
like
up
she
a lot?
posted some pictures from there, and it didn't look wildly. It didn't look like Slay the Spire. I'll tell you that. There wasn't like a bunch of gremlins attacking her.
Well, I don't know. People curate their photos nowadays.
She might have been going for a Shiv deck, and she just wiped out the enemies before I could see them.
Yeah. They were all just out of sight, you know.
Do you think they could redo The Apprentice so that it was just Slay the Spire, but in the Shard, and like Alan Sugar was at the top?
I'd welcome that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about the Shard, but then didn't there be a fox in there?
They don't think it'd be like
There
a fox in
be
there,
a
but it
fox in that shard. I
fox
do
is
believe there been a fox.
It's ruined, build another one. Fox got in. Can't get it out again. It's in here forever now.
Close the shard. There been a fox in it.
You never see the end of it now. You've broken, Tom. You're right.
It's a very funny thing that was said in a very funny way.
Was there a fox in the shard?
I mean, I think so.
There may not have been a fox in the shard.
No, I'm so sure there was a fox. Chris, Google it.
All right, fine.
It sounds like it might be in a Bella and Sebastian song if it didn't happen.
This is the most internet I've ever seen used in the making of this podcast.
The most research we've ever done.
No, it's right.
Yeah.
I'll read this out. Let me read this out.
Yes.
A fox has been discovered living at the top of the UK's tallest skyscraper. This is from 2011.
I knew.
The animal, named Romeo, is thought to have entered the 288-metre, 945-foot shard building at London Bridge through the central stairwell. No fucking shit. It flew. He only claimed to be there to assassinate Russian spies.
Or identify items.
It survived by eating scraps of food left by builders working on the incomplete structure. The fox was captured and taken to Riverside Animal Centre in Wallington, where it was fed and given a checkup. Ted,
I thought you were going to be given a check.
I'm really, with any animal story, I'm really worried this is going to a sad place.
Are you seeing the check being one of those great big, massive, great charity ones? With everyone photographed the fox.
This goes into
sitting there, bewildered.
I'm going to give you
what the fuck?
A fantastic example.
Who's eating sandwiches? £12,000.
Why? How is he going to cash it?
So this is a BBC News story I'm reading. And
a fox can't have a bank account.
This is the most remarkably BBC story because it's very well sourced for a story about a fox what were in a building. Ted Burden, the centre's founder, said, "We explained to him that
Straight away, that's good.
that if foxes were meant to be 72 stories off the ground, they would have evolved wings." I mean,
what?
That was helpful.
They wouldn't need stories if they could fly.
Yeah,
Also,
exactly.
humans haven't evolved.
Exactly. The fox replied,
100% flawed.
"Fuck off, Ted," said the fox.
What are you talking
I'll
about?
take my check and be on my way.
In
fact, I think I can glide with this thing.
Ted continues, "We think he got the message, and as we released him back onto the streets of Bermondsey, shortly after midnight on Sunday, he glanced at the shard and then trotted off in the other direction." Fuck off, Ted.
Wait, did Ted have wings? Because if so, that makes it a lot more justifiable.
But
if he's
then
like, Ted is literal an angel.
we go on. Barry Hargrove, cabinet member for transport, environment,
I'm going to
and
say
Thank
not
God
an angel.
they got the cabinet minister.
exactly, said, "Romeo has certainly been on a bit of a jaunt and proved rather elusive, but I'm glad our pest control officers were able to help out. He's obviously a resourceful little chap, but I'm sure he's glad the adventure is over, and hopefully he'll steer well clear of skyscrapers in the future." The Shard overtook Canary Wharf as the UK's highest tower block last year. Thanks, BBC, for that
Romeo
balanced reporting.
was found dead in the street one day afterwards.
But the thing is, that's like, Barry's making a lot of assumptions right there as well. Like, this is all a lot of assumptions being made about this fox and its lifestyle choices. Like, what if the fox had previously lived in Canary Wharf? It was just like,
Yeah, it's just going between the towers.
yeah, like I wanted to go try the bigger one. Like, what's wrong with
I know all about my flaws. I don't need to fly because I've got flaws. I've got stories.
Wait, are you talking about levels of a building? Or are you talking about character traits? Because both of those words work for both.
It's like, yeah.
But
anyway,
follow up with this story from the
it did
Evening
be in the
Standard.
building is where we've landed up, and I was correct.
It do be.
A fox that was found living at the top of the Shard of Glass has been released minutes away from the tower, leading to fears that it could return.
These people find a fear in anything. The fox has just been evicted.
It's like, presumably, if they've revoked its security card, it can't get back in.
He won't have it.
The fox is like, but I'm an
This is the last
accountant,
one.
let me in.
A spokesman for the Shard said, "Because gates are being constantly opened, it would be quite difficult to make it fox-proof." I miss this era of British news.
Yeah,
This
this
is-
is the
this
biggest
is
thing
a
we had to
good-
worry
yeah.
about.
Do you remember when a fox cub came in to watch Eurovision? At
I
that
wasn't there,
party I
but you
was
were
at?
there and you texted me about it.
Yeah, I used the opportunity to eat a lot of hummus while everyone was distracted by the baby fox.
Was the fox
It's important to make
involved
the
in the
most of these
hummus?
events.
The fox followed Dan Grill in through the door.
That makes sense. I know Dan Grill, no foxes. This adds up.
The story checks out.
Seems like that would happen. So wait, a fox followed Dan Grill into a Eurovision party?
Yeah.
And then watched Eurovision?
No, it eventually sort of decamped, I believe, but I can't remember quite how, because I was sort of darting between, oh, look, there's a cute fox, messaging Chris about the fox, being slightly concerned that the fox was in the house, and also eating hummus with my hand.
Did the fox enter before Eurovision started or during a certain act?
I think Dan arrived slightly late, so the fox arrived just after him. Because he followed him.
I'm just curious if like the fox was after a particular act that they really wanted to see.
Oh, I don't know.
I was
Maybe
thinking
the
Latvia.
fox like phoned in. It's like, no, I just need to see the number. Anyway, that's certainly a thing. What was the question?
It was about PCs.
Buildings
building
with
looks
graphics
like a
cards,
PC.
so we didn't miss much. Like,
Buildings that
really
PC.
serious.
Mies van der
True.
Rohe. There you go. Mies van der Rohe. Like any of them.
What?
They're all good PC buildings. Mies van der Rohe buildings.
I don't know what those are.
They're good. Very boxy.
Okay, I'm getting that.
Good. I feel like we've broken some new ground here today.
Cool.
Because we get quite a lot of questions which are in the format of this happened to me, has this happened to you? Which is a fine basis for a query, but often we don't have an answer because if it hasn't, it hasn't. But what we've learned is we can just spin off and talk about something else.
This hasn't happened to any of us, but we all had a story about the fox and the shard.
A fox be in it. A fox be in it. And also with you.
It'd be in all our hearts.
And in our understanding.
Our next question comes from Kane, who writes, Dear...
Kane?
Fox and such a
You can't not read it out in that voice. Sorry, Chris. Not accepting it if you don't.
Sit down and listen to this, or whatever his name is.
Dear Rosenspranson Guild... I can't do any other like that.
Gotham is mine.
No, that's Bane.
And
Dear Rosenspranson Guildenstern, what is the most autumnal game? Regards, Kane. That is also Kane's shortest email in the 5 to 6 year history
Yeah,
of
that's
this
impressive
podcast.
for Kane. Well done, Kane.
What does Max Payne sound like? Because we could add him
It's
to
more
the
like, I
list.
mean, Max Payne is more like the city was the colour of a dead horse rolling down a hill into a ditch. Right?
Max
Kane,
Payne
no
or
pain.
Deckard Kane? What was the question?
What is the most autumnal game?
That's very good. I like it.
Oh, God. I wrote a thing on this with that Andy Kelly chap for that PC Gamer website.
Is Alan Wake quite autumnal? It always looks autumnal in
Getting on
screenshots.
Remedy.
Maybe. I don't know. I remember we put Night in the Woods was in there.
Oh yeah, that's very explicit.
And-
Finch, Edith Finch.
And Life is Strange.
I haven't played it. No, I'm right.
Yeah, it's autumnal.
You'll have to take my word for it. Would I lie to you, Alex?
Yeah.
He's right about that fox, though.
And then there's that Forza Horizon 4, which has
That's only
quite
a
good,
quarter
quite
of
good
autumn, isn't it?
It is only a
Quarter.
quarter.
Oh no.
Titanfall, obviously.
Ooh, God, now we get to all the fall games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fallout. Oh.
Yes, Fallout. Extremely full.
Yeah.
Fall Honor.
For fuck's sake.
I hardly knew her. Is that not the Fallout of that?
yeah, no. If, God, if Ubisoft don't do a For Honor expansion called I Hardly Knew Her, then they've really missed the trick. Let's see, what other games have good autumn? Proteus could kind of generate autumnal feeling landscapes.
Pretty good.
Skyrim's quite autumnal. Maybe it just came out in autumn, so I associated with it.
Yeah. No, it had some... I felt like Riften was a good autumnal region in that game.
I appreciate autumn more than I ever did.
It's nice, isn't it?
I thought you were going to say more than you.
More than you fuckers. As I head into my autumn, the autumn of my life.
Oh, God.
Oh, Jesus.
This is really dark.
I had this.
No, because I used to be all like,
thought.
oh, summer, yeah, like easy to love summer, yeah, love summer. I used to be I remember
You
the
should hear
moment.
what Alex sounds like when he's not doing
my
the
God,
voice he does
are
for podcast.
Seasonal hipster. Like, everyone loves summer. It's easy to
I
love
liked
summer.
autumn before
I'm
it was
really
cool.
into autumn.
No, that's how I was. That's how I was.
Yeah,
That's
when
what
it was
I'm saying. But it's funny. There was that moment, that day, when you suddenly realise that, fuck, the season changed. I used to feel sad about it, and I
had
don't
this.
anymore.
I love it.
So,
I hate summer.
Yeah.
one,
I think that
autumn-
it's a growth in me, I think.
But
You want to get that looked at, Alex? Could be the fall of your life. Oof.
Oh, God.
I was seeing a bunch of people, some friends of mine who are really depressed by winter, and I remember also in the past being depressed by winter and, you know, just being tired all the time and thinking like, oh yeah, like, I'm actually not feeling that this year. And like, God, I need a nap though. I feel positive about this whole thing. I'm enjoying it, but also I really want to go to sleep like right now.
That's how I feel about a lot of things.
I think with the autumn thing, I had a very similar thing to you, Alex. Although pretty much everyone I know seems to think that autumn is their favourite season, but my version of it was I really like hydrangeas this year. Right. No. And I used to think that they were just like these blousy, annoying flowers that everyone seemed to have and that looked really sort of, you know, over very quickly. And then this year I found myself being like, maybe I appreciate them more because I've accepted that we'll all die. So the fact that they sort of like have this glorious kind of multicolored death spiral and the way that they decay is so spectacular and beautiful, and I sort of got a bit obsessed with it was probably because I am coming to terms with my own mortality.
Well, that's the whole cherry blossom thing, that is so fucking brief and...
Get it with magnolias.
I don't want it to be winter.
I don't know, can't you experience the transient beauty of a snowman?
No. And I say this because you don't have children, and therefore you don't have to enjoy the fucking snowman with your children all the time every year. And they either want one or they make one, and they make you either make it with them.
Fuck's sake.
You could like get them to make other things in the snow. Snow cap.
Do you want to get a day job?
Well, literally, yeah. Normally this is happening at like 4:00 on a Tuesday afternoon. The one day it's like snowing and I have shit to do. I'm not going to make a fucking snow tortoise or a snow hydrangea.
Could you not
Snow fox.
Are they not of an age where they can do it themselves?
Yeah, but they want the, look.
They want the approval.
Look, Daddy.
Fuck's sake.
Whatever.
Assholes.
I'm not like that, really.
Yeah, you are, though. You never approve of me when I ask you to.
When you make a snowman.
I made like 8 snowmans over the course of this podcast, and you were like,
Let them melt.
Do your kids ever try and put them in the freezer?
No.
Oh, because
How big is your freezer?
Yeah, how big is your freezer?
Well, no, but like you sort of keep. Have you never tried to keep snowballs or like icicles?
All right.
Things?
Oh, we won't let them because
you don't like joy. We've established, yeah.
Because there's food in there and there's shit outside with all the fucking snow in it.
Wow. Okay. Somebody didn't have to parent in the 80s when there was nothing to do.
When people hadn't discovered filth.
My mother used to just think that if it hadn't killed us, we'd be fine. Like, she would just sort of hack the mouldy bits off bread and cheese, and we would have to eat that.
This is basically
not
why
even really hack them off. Just like, actually, if it hasn't killed you, it's make you stronger.
It was basically eat around it, and you're like, I mean, I'm fairly sure that we can afford non-mouldy cheese.
Yeah.
And yet, here we are. Oh, that sounds bleak, doesn't it? Okay.
Merry Christmas, everybody. The next question comes from Noel, who writes, "Hello all. The last time I watched Elementary Season 5, Episode 14, shamefully entitled Wrecked in Real Life." I've seen this episode.
Oh, yeah.
I sent a question about what the video game that featured in the episode might be about. I happen to be watching the episode again, and I'm inspired to ask another question. What is the worst representation of a video game in TV or film? Cheers, Noel. So this, if you haven't seen it, is the episode of Elementary that is about esports.
It's not though, is it?
It's not, because every episode of Elementary is about big something, like big industry, like big oil, big, vegetables.
Bees.
Big bees. Big bees is the thing.
Actually, he's really into bees.
I think this one is about big
games.
What,
seals?
do you want to give it away?
No, I don't want to give it away. It's not about the thing you think it is.
No.
But yes.
But they do actually, represent an esports house.
They do. They have a good old stab at doing it semi, right? It's just...
That's a really interesting thing that, it's true, it exists, and you could show it, and you wouldn't need to sugarcoat it or change it in any way to make it a totally bizarre and fascinating thing to the mainstream audience, right?
Yeah.
An esports house where, people just wake up and fucking play Counter-Strike or StarCraft or whatever,
the thing that
16 hours a day.
The thing that makes it so unbearable when US cop shows do this is not really necessarily just a presentation of the game, because I get that often there are probably licensing things and they do just want to use a CGI dodgy mock-up of a fake game. It's always whichever character they have to deputize to suddenly reveal that they're a gamer in the episode, so someone can do the exposition. So someone can be like, "Oh, you're into this stuff," and they're like, "Yeah, well, you see, they're a cyber athlete, and they go by the name Super Shocks."
And there's just so much awkward leet speak or really sort of gamery tropes just to really remind people or signify. It actually did that less egregiously in some ways than others.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Yeah, what was the really egregious one, the Mentalist, where somebody was literally using a PlayStation controller to access the secret memory of the PlayStation that the dead person had hidden.
Yeah.
It's famous for being the worst of a very large set of very, very bad representations of video games.
There was an amazing one in what's that guy's name with the boat? the show about the boat. With the man.
Robert Maxwell.
No, he's a murderer.
Fictional
he's
show?
A murderer who's also
Dexter?
forensic. Yes,
There you
thank you. Anyway, so he
Man, the one identifying feature of Dexter is that he has a boat.
I got it when he got into he's a murderer and also an investigator. But the man with
with
a boat.
a boat.
He does have a boat.
That's his whole thing, though, isn't it?
No,
That's not his whole thing!
Because the two series
things,
I
and that's
watched,
neither of the two
he didn't
things.
have a boat. I'm pretty sure he didn't. I don't remember
does
a
have a
boat.
boat.
He has a boat.
Well, even in the earliest
Yeah, he does
of the bodies.
It's true of him, it's just not one of his two things.
I vaguely remember that.
I don't remember any other serial
oh, you
killers
know that
having a
person we know,
boat.
the one with the house.
There's bricks and windows.
The guy fries eggs for breakfast. He's also a murderer and in a criminal investigation, but he fries eggs.
Look, if I'd said he was a murderer, that wouldn't have narrowed it down.
Yes, he would!
Oh.
He was a murderer police officer.
Because
Yes,
I
we
thought
would have
that
got
we'd
it.
been talking about police procedurals.
We
So
had.
I thought that this
Yeah,
was
but
another...
the one where the main character is a murderer would narrow it down.
I suppose it would.
You get the one where it's a mentalist.
What have you been watching lately, Pip? I watched a show about a guy with a boat. Oh yeah, cool, I like boats. Cool, I like this. Sure, yeah. Do you like people just cutting other people's throats and taking samples of their blood and strapping them down with tape?
But the boat is the constant.
No, Dexter's the
Tonight's the night, and it's going to happen again. I'm going to take my boat out on the marina.
I love that show. This one owner of this boat.
Anyway.
One period of
What
this
does he
boat
do with
existed.
what does he do with games?
So, in one of the series, his sister, maybe, is dating a man who is... Look, my memory of this is starting to get a bit hazy, I feel. I'm being very judged. But the guy that she is dating turns out to... he's working on a video game, and that's how he says that he needs to embed with the police, is to get a sense of who they are and to see how it works in relation to video games or something, I think. And then at some point he shows the video game, and it's just the worst little 3D rendering of a man in a fedora wandering around. It's so
That's no way to talk about gunpoint.
Yeah, don't say that.
Look, Gunpoint is the best rendering of a man in a fedora, I'll have you know.
Well, yours was only 2 dimensions. This guy, 3rd dimension all over the place. Yeah, and he has a boat. Anyway.
My genuine least favourite video game episode of an American show is Veronica Mars first. That is just really sort of icky.
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
It's the one where she has to go to like the cool gamer arcade.
Oh,
and
yeah.
For inexplicable reason, she dresses up as like a Japanese schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of what she has to do to be in that environment. And it's super gross. And that's a show that's otherwise kind of about that. So that's kind of shit that they just fucked it up for an episode.
Yeah, that does suck. It's really nice, though. It's just reminded me that it's really nice that Kristen Bell is still on my screen and, like, an awesome character who I really like.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
In the good place.
That's exactly. Yeah. And that's the linking thread back from Snowmen. That could have been the segue. Who knows? But yeah,
she, I think her daughter made her dress up as Elsa.
Oh, yeah?
As Elsa instead of Anna.
It was like, but I'm literally yeah, she had to dress up as Elsa for Halloween, I think.
Even she is not immune.
That's very good. Any other?
Just imagine, though, if you were Elsa.
You could have done that. I believe in you. Any other really bad instances of video games in movies or vice versa? Or TV?
I mean, they're kind of constant, aren't they?
Yeah,
but like
it's
just
never good.
a low level, not very good,
But
right?
Something
Like
I'm curious about
Pixels
is, like,
is
could you,
probably-
if you were just writing, like, you know, Veronica Mars or whatever, and you wanted to show a video game developer and you wanted to show them developing a video game, could you just literally talk to a video game developer who is making a video game and say, hey, would you like to be on fucking TV? And we'll just literally show your actual game and we'll be beyond reproach. There will be no, you know, we cannot be humiliated by this. This is literally
I don't think it's impossible to be humiliated by that.
The humiliation is always like they're just grossly out of touch with what video games actually are, like on the most basic level. And
sure, but do you not accept that, like, picking which developer, which game is just a huge lottery?
You could pick a game that turns out to be bad eventually, but it would still be a video game. Like,
right,
that's the standard that they're failing to meet right now.
Okay,
it's like, this is not even a video. It doesn't even make sense. Like, the person's using a PlayStation controller to, like, enter a password or, like...
or you know, things like doing that thing where they're flinging the controller wildly from side to side to simulate a very basic input of a thing, and like, you know, the
to show the sheer excitement.
But also to like you have a lot of episodes of things where you show somebody being completely not understanding what the whole thing is about, and then like a screen wipe later, you've got this same person, you know, covered in Cheeto dust with a headset on, shouting at somebody to flank left or, you know, whatever, and, you know, throwing the controller hither and yon. And yeah.
I'm curious actually about Halt and Catch Fire, which is a series about like the early days of computing. The first season is basically about just like making a kind of laptop, I think, like
PC.
a laptop.
It's like it's an IBM compatible PC.
Yeah.
You're sure it's not a building?
PCs were not cool back then, whereas they are now.
That's a wrap on the Crate and Crowbar.
I had to jump in there before I said it.
Maybe this is why they don't ask game developers for their extra realism.
But season 2 is about like an indie game developer, basically, or a very early game developer, early enough that it's basically what they're making is what we would now call an indie game. And they're very specific about what games they're making and how they worked, and to the point where, like, you know, a character will play the game that the other characters are making and say, oh, this has a technical flaw that I think I can fix because I'm a programmer and I can go in and fix this, and it turns out to be bullshit. But the games they make, I'm really curious of like whether those are things that really existed or whether
I think to an extent, like
there was like a versus tank game,
super early networked like sort of games running on C64s and stuff.
And so like the main programmer character who was kind of out of work at that time, the other characters had made this like versus tank game that was online and was going through modems and all the shit. And he plays it and he loses because of lag. Like he technically pressed the fire button before the other guy pressed the fire button, but he died because the signal was sent later. And I really want to know, like, is that specific game? Did that exist? Or is this just like an analogy for games that do exist? Yeah. That show in general is very good at, like, the tech stuff is very authentic and makes sense. But not so good on the drama side.
I want to also give a shout out to my particular favourite form of hating to see games on TV, which is not in the context of fiction. It's whenever there's like a reality TV show that visits someone who, or spends time with someone, or tries to like frame the life of somebody who does play games, and it is watching the awkward B-roll they had to film of them enjoying their hobby as if the camera crew wasn't there. That gives me the entire fear. There's an example of this, I think, in the second season of Queer Eye, where they visit a guy, and there's just a shot of him, and he's obviously extremely self-conscious about being filmed quite close up by a camera crew as he plays like Call of Duty online with his mates or something. And it's not necessarily like a judgmental thing in the filming of it. But it's obviously staged that like, hey, and I can think about all of the process that leads up to that. Like, hey, we'd like to get some shots of you playing a game. Can you just sort of
play a game?
We'll film. Don't worry about it. Just be normal. and there is no way of doing that in that moment, really. Like, and it's just, profoundly unsettling to me personally.
You can feel it. You can be there.
If no one else has any other suggestions of mortifyingly bad games in film, then I'm afraid we've reached the end of questions from questions. Ooh. That is all of the questions we have time for this week.
But there will be more weeks.
Very likely. So. Very likely.
Yeah, but there'll be winter and you'll be sad. Tom will be napping.
Bad weeks.
Happily napping.
Napping. No.
God.
Is that what that Mark Wahlberg film was about?
Is that a film?
The Happening.
Oh.
The Happy Nappening with Mark Wahlberg.
Doesn't anybody care about the bees? They're napping.
Big bee.
We could be napping. Why aren't we napping?
Tom's Mark Wahlberg impression there.
That's what he sounds like, I think. As far as I know. I haven't seen The Happening.
Tonight's show has been Deckard Cain impersonations.
Deckard Cain.
Is that not his name?
It is, but it's just the emphasis.
No pronunciation passes Chris's
sorry.
filters.
How do you say?
I let you get away with the Deckard earlier.
Deckard or
Deckard.
Deckard Cain.
It's Deckard.
Jean-Luc Deckard.
Jean-Luc Deckard. Engage.
Stay a while and engage.
They're stuffing things into a Borg cube. What the fuck am I talking about? If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode of the podcast, you can do so by emailing us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. Don't forget, we also have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/crateandcrowbar. We have a lovely Discord community. You can find the link to our Discord on our website at crateandcrowbar.com. We have a Twitter account, which is @crateandcrowbar. I'm doing this all ass backwards this week. And as ever, thank you very much to our Patreon backers. You can find out more about supporting the podcast and its spin-offs at patreon.com/there's a fox in it. That's Crate and Crowbar, isn't it?
Just in case.
I mean, if there is a fox in it, maybe don't sponsor that.
It wasn't there's a fox in it. Fox be in it?
Fox be in it.
Didn't there be a fox?
Didn't there be a fox be in it?
Didn't there be a fox in it?
Yes. And yes, the answer was.
Yeah.
And also with you.
Over fox being you.
Oh God.
May there be a fox in you.
I have to cut so much of this.
May the fox be in Eurovision. There we go.
Oh God. If you'd like to follow any of us as individuals,
probably not.
You can do so. Probably not, but if you'd like to, it's at C Thurston, that's CTHURSTEN.
They were expressing strong preferences after this episode. So go follow. Tom, I'm Matt Pentadact, PENTADSD.
I am rotational, ROTATIOANA.
That kind
You get
of
the
thing.
fucking picture.
Type I's and A's and N's and you'll get there. It's rotational. It's just the word rotational.
I'm Philippa War. It's PHILIPPAWA. Wait.
Double R.
Yeah.
Yeah, the important thing is the double R.
It's
I
because I was in America last week and they don't have double R as a thing that they easily understand. No, as in when you read out the letters of your surname and you say double R, that seems to really throw them for a loop. I don't think that you say double letters in that way.
Double R? What?
And so, like, they were like, wait, your name is Whoa.
A big R?
No. Like, so I think they think it's a W. But anyway, so I got out of the habit of saying that, but then that meant that my brain panicked just then. It wasn't like I'm like Alex and don't know how to spell.
Not that bad.
I just thought I would try and help and then became paralysed by choice.
You didn't. No, you did. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Probably not even here anymore.
And I feel like we have to do it again.
Oh.
The whole podcast, I mean.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Episode 163, I'm going to say. It's the 20-something of November.
21st, I know that one.
Today about, I feel like Artifact is going to come up. Then there'll be some stuff about some Warhammer game whose name I've already forgotten.
Slay the
And then
Spire,
I,
which
Tim Francis, are going to talk about Hitman, and that's going to be the highlight.
Is this your Mark
Pip is
Wahlberg
also here.
impression
I don't know what
again?
she's going to talk about.
Hi, I'm a wild card. You'll never know until it starts.
Too many foxes in the shard for some reason.
So stay a while.
Go away! Please leave. It's been too long.
Do the thanks for listening as their card game.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Oh, God.